So at 6:30, I'm calling this meeting to order of the Prudential Committee meeting on August 18th, 2014 at 6:30 at Park Street School. And first item up is any visitors or staff to be heard. Seeing none and hearing none, we will move on to our principals' reports.
Okay, so I'll start with ADL. The Wonder Committee has continued to gather grant money and donations to purchase the book Wonder for all the students there. They're going to be planning activities throughout the year around this. They're going to be reading the book together in the fall. They will also create their social contract based on the concepts of this book, and they also hope to have a speaker come in for this. Some public events over the next month. ADL's open house is going to be September 11th at 7 p.m. and their first schoolwide town meeting is going to be September 22nd at 8 a.m. Thomas Fleming School, they hosted the EJRP Summer Camp, Camp Reach, for 150 students. And this camp also offered the free breakfast and lunch to all of these students as well as the community. They're going to be transitioning in 124 new fourth grade students from Summit and Hiawatha. The overall school enrollment has actually grown over the summer to 254 students, which affirms our decision to add that extra classroom and teacher. Principal Ryan, along with two of the math teachers, attended the NCTM conference and found two promising math programs that they want to field test. One is called Stepping Stones. This offers online instructional resources. The other is Mobius Math online as well. They're hoping that this will give the students a leg up come next spring when they take the SBACs. They now have a 1-to-2 ratio of Chromebooks to students, and they'll be working on their next phase of the Learning Center transformation, which is the development of the audio video production lab. They were also gifted some robotics equipment from the EHS robotics department. So they plan to offer students learning about engineering and robotics this year. Some public events for them is their open house curriculum night, September 17th from 6:30 to 8, and their Fleming PTO meeting will be September 3rd at 8 a.m. Principal Ryan just wanted to acknowledge and thank the school secretary, Amy Cronin, as well as the trio of their hardworking custodians, David Mitchell, Gus Charbonneau, and Frank Williams, who've been getting the school ready. Hiawatha is welcoming a new secretary, Amanda Stevens. They also have hosted several summer programs managed by EJRP. They're going to be presenting to staff a new formative data collection program to go along with their action plans, as well as they've established a curriculum leadership team comprised of 4 teachers there. The third graders will now have access to in-classroom Google Chromebooks. And a few public events for them. Their open house will be Tuesday, September 16th from 6:30 to 8. Pre-K and K students will be welcome back Monday, August 25th from 3 to 4 on the playground. And the PTO meeting is Tuesday, September 9th from 6:30 to 7:30 in the school library. Summit Street, you all know we're welcoming a new principal, Suzanne Grudling. She's been working very hard with the CCSU staff to get ready for the school year. A team of their teachers attended the BEST Institute to begin implementing PBIS, which is Positive Behavior Intervention and Supports, to increase social and emotional skills for learning. The side walkway project and stairway is near completion, and they successfully hosted a summer school there. They have a few public events coming up over the next month. August 21st, their new student orientation is grades 1 to 3 at 4 p.m. That same day, they'll have a social for kindergarten families at 6:30 p.m. August 26th, open classroom visitation for all students at 1. September 9th will be their PTO kickoff meeting at 6:30. And September 23rd, they're going to have their open house and curriculum night, and you can check out the website come September for that time. And those are the reports.
Excellent. Anybody else have anything else to add? As they look through the reports.
Got a question for you, Chair. Wasn't one of the first items
that
we should do, the changes?
I was going to get to that
okay.
next.
Okay.
Because I realized in my zeal to start us on time, then I forgot that we had a couple of amendments to the agenda. In the consent agenda is to delete the recommendation for professional appointments and add a recommendation to approve a waiver of tuition. And then the second item on the agenda to slightly change is to move our future agenda items topic before we go into executive session. Everybody okay with those changes? All right. Okay, thank you for the principal's reports. And next on, we're going to talk about the task team assignments in the annual work plan. And one of the things we've been talking about is, as we, are, each of us have our assignments within the various task teams: communications, policy, leaders at work, and negotiations and such. One of the things we want to take a look at is, as we're on these various committees, to go through them, with an eye toward how they affect and how they flow with the annual work plan for the superintendent. Judy, what would you like to? Can you add something more to that? I mean, I know I'm being very general, but
right. Well, the annual work plan reflects the work of policy negotiations, communication, and board visioning work. So each of the boards during their August meeting are reviewing the annual work plan in light of the work of those board task teams, so that as a board you can charge those people who are responsible and representing your board on those task teams with helping frame the charge and priorities to ensure that we meet the tasks that are identified within the annual work plan. So, for example, under communications, there's a desire to develop a public relations plan to get more engagement, especially around topics of budget development, AYP results, and various other priorities you may have with whatever goals you're setting, and to engage with our legislators as well. So whoever sits on that team, I know this board talks, for example, in particular about posting updates on Front Porch Forum and what that looks like, and following up from your meetings, and what kind of cycle can that look like, and what's the process that you're going to use, and are there other boards? I know the Westford board is developing their chair is developing a blog for the same kind of an engagement purpose, and so it's a time to come together across the SU as boards and determine what works best in our communities, in the different communities, and choose different communication strategies that are proven and effective. Policy, we're going to be moving forward with the wellness procedures this year. There'll be a lot of work with communication around the shifts to our culture as these procedures are put into place. And will require a lot of communication as well. So what's the connection the board will have with the rep? Because at times when we get to report out on task teams, sometimes it's we met, and it doesn't always reflect the work of the local board or the work of the tasks identified within the work plan, with outcomes and timelines for completion identified. So this was an opportunity for you to talk about, with great pleasure, the fact that you won't have to have a negotiations task team this year. That work's been completed. So that provides a little bit more capacity maybe for Tim and David. And Michael sits on 2, and as chair and as a member of the SU board, you want to share or redistribute your attendance.
Yeah, right, make adjustments to that.
And make any adjustments.
Right.
Yeah, since you're not going to be on negotiations, and you're really pretty involved. I'm appreciating your interest in communications. I thought that maybe you can spring Michael out of that communications task team, or share it, so that I just worry about your capacity, Michael, as
Right.
SU board chair, this board chair, and then sitting on 2 task teams as well.
Yeah, and that was actually going to be my suggestion as far as communications. I mean, historically, we've pretty much always just had one representative present at the communications task team. Certainly wouldn't hurt to have 2 there, and I certainly wouldn't have any problem if Tim would be willing to step over and move on to the communications team for the rest of this year.
Yeah.
How do the other boards, like the U46 board, they can have 3 members on it without having a quorum?
Right.
Westford has 2 members and we have 1. So are we missing the boat communications wise, or you always
I've never
held your own,
I've never
right?
felt it like it was something that it was a matter of the numbers making a difference in terms of what was accomplished, at least in the communications team. It's always seemed like a very cooperative group, you know, as far as what topics are discussed.
3 people to several meetings. The policy meeting in high school often had 3, when everybody else had 2, if that.
I mean, to me, it's like dividing up the work, so you can always bring stuff back, or like send a question out or something if you need to. But
Right.
unless there's a need for that, I don't think, unless we kind of identify something, I think it can work fine. I mean, that's the idea, is like divide it up.
Right.
So that way, no one has to do too many things, if that's what they want to do.
Exactly. I don't feel like it's...
But maybe it's just like, and I think the only thing would be then, say there was a meeting I couldn't make, or something, then it's basically just like looking for someone to go.
Well, if you want to get off it
Schedule.
completely, I mean, I'll take,
Right?
I mean, Tim and I can share it if you want, and just get you out of it completely if you want to. It's,
Well, you're in there.
Yeah, I'm on.
oh, you're on there, okay.
Yeah, Jen's already on
Okay.
there. And so it would just basically be as Jen's backup,
Or
or,
just replacing you.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good way to do it.
Yeah.
okay. So we'll do that. We'll move Tim over to communications. Is there any other committee, task team that anyone would like to come off of because of scheduling issues that we can perhaps make a rearrangement now? No? Okay. Well, then we'll stick with everything. So we've got Jen and Tim will be on communications. Myself and Marla on leaders at work. Policy is Dave and Jen. And then the Parks and Rec is still Marla. Okay. Everybody good with those? Because I think they're pretty good. All right. And then the other piece of the task team is take the annual work plan as kind of a guide for just keeping in mind, you know, at the end of next year we'll have to do, you know, we have to do an evaluation of the superintendent, and it certainly makes it easier, or at least facilitates the whole process, if we have everybody contributing to that evaluation, with each individual at least giving a little more focus via the task team that they're on. You have a little more insight to what's occurred and such. Much more than just as the individual who doesn't see everything. So just keep that in mind.
So unfortunately, the flip side of this work plan is the alignment with the superintendent's evaluation, and I guess it didn't copy, but we can send that out to you, so that when you sit on your task team and you look at the elements that are being evaluated in the superintendent's
There it is.
evaluation, you can talk about what evidence or outcomes you'd like to see or use towards that evaluation. So we'll send you, Ben can send that out to you tomorrow. So you see the alignment. So when you go to those task teams, you see the connections and how you provide feedback through your task team work into that evaluation process as well.
So that's in the superintendent's evaluation, but, so, like, the first thing we need to do, I guess that's in each committee is align the items.
They're aligned.
They are.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
the
it's just
Leaders
not
at
here.
Work team, yeah, it's just missing, sorry.
Okay,
another
so that is,
document.
it's already there is what you're
Right.
saying.
Right, it's just there was another
Yes.
document that wasn't included in.
Right, so
Okay,
the Leaders
yes.
at Work, Mike and Marla sat there and went through the rubrics, and they chose the elements of focus for the year. And now the next conversation is, what's the evidence of that, and how do we calibrate on what that evidence looks like?
Yeah, right.
The dates accomplished, who's accomplishing it.
Exactly.
You know, I think that's one of the complaints we heard with evaluations in the past, the CCSU board. They weren't seeing who's responsible for accomplishing. Judy is as the superintendent, but then there's other people. Some of the boards and task teams are responsible to come up with some of this. And then it was having dates of when we were going to complete
Right.
Yeah,
things.
It's like that. It's like the more detail associated with these just items, right? You need more than
Right.
just
Yeah.
the list. Right.
And
Yeah,
my
that seems fine. And then clearly identifying what stuff's for the board to do through those teams versus what's superintendent and staff and lots of other
Exactly.
things are not going to
Exactly,
be by
because
the
the
board.
work plan
Right.
is a shared
Right.
with boards and leaders and teachers for that matter. It's the organizational
right.
work plan.
Right.
And wasn't it left, we haven't met for a couple of months, Leaders at Work, because of timing. And I think it was left with the chairs of the three boards were to get together with this, come up with a little more detail to bring back to the Leaders at Work, because we've got to have some stuff completed
Right.
before the first CCSU board meeting.
And I
So
believe we're
Michael
doing that
Smith
on
has it scheduled for Wednesday.
Wednesday,
Of
yes.
this week at 7:30. We'll be meeting with the executive board, and I'll be preparing evidence for the summative evaluation so they can complete that and finalize the first year eval. And then we'll be in a place to begin the implementation of the second year evaluation.
Yeah, as long as we do a good job of, building on this process, it'll get, I guess, easier. It'll become more fluid than
Systematized, yeah.
what it is right now as we're continuing to develop it. Okay.
So Ben, you're going to send out that other sub-document on the work plan? Yeah.
Excellent.
And it's also on the board site whenever you go there, under the Leaders at Work task team.
Okay.
Yeah, it is out there, but sometimes it helps just to have it sent,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
a very specific reason for it. It just helps to
Yeah.
put it together. All right, so next up is the report out on EJRP. Mr. Brad. Hey.
It was listed down there for two things, right?
Mm-hmm. We have your proposal,
Yep.
and then a review of your report.
Yes. So,
Can start either place. Folks have the report, and did everybody get a copy of the proposal, the preschool proposal? I think that came separately from the orgs.
I'm just seeing it now for the first time,
Okay.
so.
So, if folks have questions on the report, but it's the standard monthly report, but the quick synopsis is that we're in our last week now of summer, but it was a great summer over at the park, a really busy one, a lot of great new programs, and it was great weather-wise, which makes a big difference. But again, just a really phenomenal staff this summer. And things are winding down this week. Last week of Camp Maple Street and last week of the pool. That closes on Saturday. So that's all been great. We're also excited for the fall. All of our regular programs are starting up the first couple weeks in September. Village Kids, where Adam's been working kids in off the wait list. There was a 17 kid wait list at Summit Street for Village Kids. The other schools are both, Hiawatha is full and Fleming is at its highest it's ever been, is around 50 kids a day, which is up, 2.5 times what it was a couple years ago. So the demands continue to grow, and the space challenges I think we continue to try and work through, and Adam's been working with Suzanne to try and get some additional space at Summit after school to allow us to expand those numbers, which has been good. And we recently hired Meredith Bartolo, our new preschool teacher. She'll be teaching the classroom here, the threes. She's been a preschool teacher for the last 13 years and has a master's degree in early ed. So she's been a great addition. She started today and is getting familiar and spent the morning in the classroom. So we're excited about that. We've been talking a lot about the preschool, and you saw the proposal or have it in front of you. We're extremely excited to be in Park Street North year-round starting this year. We've been in there the past 3 summers, just completing our 3rd summer now, and it's been a great summer space, and looking forward to staying there throughout the school year. And as you know now, by allowing us to utilize that space, we have 2 classrooms, one at Maple Street with the 4-year-olds and one here with the 3-year-olds. And our goal is really to co-locate those classrooms, and we have kind of the same setup that is here at Maple Street. The problem is in the summertime, Camp Maple Street is there, and it's really not a great place during the summer because it's so busy for preschool in the summer, so being over here has been a lot better. But we'd really like to co-locate the classrooms here in this space, having one classroom here in the south and one in the north. And you know, we were fine with operating 2 classrooms in 2 separate sites, but when we started interviewing for the preschool coordinator position, we just, in our questions even, we were finding ourselves saying, gosh, there would be some really great advantages to being next door, to having multi-age recess, to working on curriculum items together, field trips together, guest speakers together, sharing staff much more easily between the rooms. You find some staff are really good at arts or really good at know things about nature, and to just kind of tap those resources when they're next door, and you just have a lot more people. So our request now is to consider us utilizing this space starting in June, and then starting next year for the school year to really have both classrooms here. And the reason we wanted to bring this up now is because parents are starting to consider over the next couple months where their kids will be in a year from now. And it's really important when they sign up that they know where the location of the classroom is. So even though we wouldn't actually be using the space till June, we think it's really important to try and finalize this if the board's comfortable with it, so that as people are signing up and making classroom visits, we can let them know where their kids are going to be. And certainly people make decisions where these 2 facilities are close enough that hopefully it's negligible for folks. But I think some people, maybe coming to this part of town is different than going to Maple Street, or maybe signing up for Maple Street, they liked it because of the park aspect. And so I think it's important that people know what they're getting up front. So obviously that would mean a loss of this space as conference space, though it seems to be used less by the boards, given that you all are now meeting at the schools most of the time. It is used a fair amount during the day by Amy Cole. I would say is using it most frequently with different meetings and trainings. So our plan would be that starting next year, and this would not be in the summer months, but during the school year, that the space that's currently the preschool could become this room at rec. And I mean, all of this stuff could be transferred over there, and the could still be booked through your office. All the card readers and all that stuff is all the same. So that I don't think there's really any access issues or anything like that. We're used to having it dedicated as preschool space, so we don't use it as program space. So it wouldn't be a change for us in terms of not utilizing that left multipurpose room. And I think long term, I mean, we would be willing to do that for as long as needed. But I think, at some point maybe there would be a space in one of the schools that would be the conference space. But for as long as you all needed it at rec, we would be willing to dedicate it. in order to get both of our preschool classrooms, side by side.
Brad, can you speak a little bit about your increase in enrollment for your 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds in preschool?
Yeah, so we've always been serving 16 kids, though sometimes 18 or 20 if we have part-time kids. So right now we have 17 kids enrolled in the 3s room and 15 kids in the 4s room. 14 of the 17 are residents and 13 of the 15 are residents. And we continue to believe that those numbers will be strong. We continue to see numbers grow for every piece of childcare. Summer camp enrollments, we added a camp this summer for 59 kids, which didn't exist, and it was full every week. Village Kids, as I told you earlier, is constantly, the demand is increasing, and also the focus statewide on quality pre-K education is growing. So, our interest is to continue to serve those community needs, and we think certainly filling 2 classrooms a year is going to happen, and maybe more down the road.
Would you ever see yourself in the future using the left multi-purpose room for yet another preschool? Do you think the numbers could grow to that?
Yeah, it's something we've been talking about. We still run into that summer issue of having to move, which is challenging. Okay. But I think there's opportunity for additional preschool. I think there's opportunity too for more K to 5 or 0 to 5 playgroups and educational opportunities, and we already run a few days a week. There'll be Building Bright Futures groups over at the park. So I think there's just, I've talked with Erin McGuire at length. I think there's not a parent-child family center in Essex, and I think those needs exist and certainly are growing.
I think your enrollments are an example of the trust that people have in your staff from being on the advisory board. It's obvious the parents that you have there are very committed to having their kids in. Some of them that are parents have their kids enrolled in the programs and like the programs, are great spokespeople. So I think it's a win-win situation. Someday I'd like to see that family center. I'd like to see the upstairs be part of that. You've heard me talk about, I think there's, like David Young at South Burlington, when we heard him at the state conference, getting even the moms that are pregnant, you go out and you find them that are in your community, and you're giving them, information as to where they can access help and info. And he has promoted, and I agree with it, that you find them and you take care of them from the beginning, and it solves a lot of behavioral issues that we're seeing in the schools.
I think it just makes so much sense, like you said, all the advantages to having them right next to each other. They can go on the field trips together, they can have speakers come in together. That just makes total sense. And then I know we were concerned about cameras, and now doesn't the ACE program want to put one outside?
Yes.
So that eliminates that issue.
So I think for the board, from your perspective, your budget meetings are here. That's 4 or 5 times a year, and you probably have 4 meetings here approximately throughout the year, and then you have a planning day that we use this space for. So it's really your comfort level. Brad was very honest in saying that probably one of the greatest minuses will be if we need to meet in the summer, some of the difficulty of parking at the park. But ADL's right up the road, and there's plenty of spillover parking there. But it's just to ensure, certainly we want to ensure your interest in making the move, and your assets could be moved with you there. And as long as you have a comfort level with that and see the value in moving the preschool here,
Yeah, I mean, that should be
no
a
brainer.
priority for me. It's like, hey, we can meet anywhere. We just have to
Right.
find a place. Like, it doesn't even have to be always in the same
We
place.
can go to
Like,
Tim's
we
house.
can go to my
every
house.
month.
That's right.
We can do whatever, right? I mean, so we should move, for the best, arrangement. If this is the best arrangement now, let's do that. Let's do that. Move this, and then it doesn't even need to be like always reserved. I mean, okay, I'm like you say, you're not using it because you're not using it today. So it's not, you're not going to come up immediately with some other
Right,
use
right.
for the room.
Right.
So we can just kind of generally start out like that. But if something else comes up, well, then we should, move again or move around or whatever. It's just more out of convenience that it's one of our buildings.
Right.
I think more than anything, right, is why
Right.
we tend to use this more.
Correct. It's the least hassle
Yeah, right.
to use when we
When
choose
we
to
need
use
to,
it,
but
I guess.
we could use any.
Right.
I think
Conference room at
the
high school,
other
whatever.
thing that the rec department has going is Harlan has been a great resource over there at the rec department, and they have added a conference room. And they've done a very good job, so it's not just that multi-use room. There's the conference room.
Yep.
So that there would be, I believe you have all the board and TV stuff that we need.
Yeah, the
We would
comfort-
bring this with us as well.
Huh?
We would bring this.
Bring that
all
with
of
us,
the-
yeah.
All of your
Yeah.
assets.
Yep.
But the proposal is just to start it after this school year. We wouldn't start it now and get the other preschool over here now.
Well, we had contemplated that, and we had put a note out to our parents that this was something we were going to be requesting from the board, and we had gotten some feedback. This is back to why we're trying to decide this now. That families really were expecting to be at Maple Street, and to kind of throw that wrench in a couple weeks ahead before, when it's just for a lot of them even said just for the kids were expecting to go back to Maple Street, and so it seemed like too big of a change for folks this quickly. But to know now, for families who are here next year, that you'll be moving over the classroom, and I think it would just be a great peace of mind for folks.
Do the preschool programs that you have, are you going to need more outside space, fencing, or playground equipment over here, different?
Yeah, all of the above, actually. If we know that we're going to be over here, I would like to fence in this side yard, just kind of continue that back fence, so this green space is fenced in. And we would like to add, just a small T-swing set, and another play structure. That was another feedback from the folks, is they really like the amenities at Maple Street Park, so trying to enhance some of what's here. I mean, this is a beautiful green space, but folks are just going from one to the other,
Right.
so we would like to do a couple of those things.
Does anyone have anything else to add? Because otherwise, I'd like to ask for a motion to.
Well, I had the same concerns I had last time, is the cost of all this. This building's being maintained, or these rooms are being maintained, and that shouldn't be paid for by the school district. It should be paid for by EJRP, or even more specifically, should be paid for by the preschool programs. We're losing our clarity, our separation of what money belongs to EJRP and what belongs to Prudential Committee. We're subsidizing a preschool that competes with other preschools. We're giving them free housing. Other preschools don't afford that. I think there has to be some sort of money transfer that goes from EJRP to the preschool, to a Prudential Committee for the use of the space. I know it's same taxpayers, but it is the whole general populace is subsidizing preschool then. And they shouldn't be doing that. That preschool should be paid for the people who use it, right? This is not part of the school system. This is a private school, private preschool.
But with I'm assuming on paper, a lot of it comes out in the swap. Because if we take this room and move it over there, then we're taking the EJRP space.
Well, they're taking 2 rooms, and we never really covered this last time. I brought it up, and it just kind of went away.
From that one.
Right.
Right.
And then again, if it comes down to putting fencing in and all that, who's paying for that? Why should the the general populace pay for something that's being used solely by preschool? Preschool should be paying for that.
Any improvements we would pay for.
Yeah, I would assume.
Not EJRP, but
EJRP.
no, the preschool should be paying for it.
Right,
They're the only ones who use it. It's bought just for them.
right. The EJRP preschool program.
Okay,
will pay for
okay,
those
but still,
improvements.
now the maintenance of these 2 buildings, it's a small dollar amount. I just think we blurred the lines of what money and what costs are being bared by one group of taxpayers and being used for something else.
So would Harlem be the person responsible for custodial services here?
That I'd totally be open to, and we obviously, I would be happy to pay any expenses. I mean, it's not our intent to skirt expenses.
I know,
Yeah. So, but if for custodial,
I'm having a hard time with it.
we'd be happy to pay the custodian directly. I mean, we already pay a custodian to clean our buildings. So for us to take over paying that person and have that process through us, we'd be happy to do that.
And didn't you offer last year when you moved into North a dollar figure that the board waived? Is my recollection of that? I think it was a $5,000.
We left it in, and it was left in so that if the rec department, if there was movement or damages, then it would be expended, is how I took it. It was a safeguard. It didn't get taken out of the budget, and it was basically left there. This building is owned by the Essex Junction School District, Essex Junction residents. And right now, when I asked during budget, a lot of the use of this is CCSU, total CCSU. So for this room and that room, we weren't getting rent. We were just letting it be used. So we're not out any money. I think it's something that, Dave, I think you're absolutely correct. We got to look at it and make sure, but I think as long as we're using the rec department space, then I don't think we're blurring whose money is whose money.
Ruth, I guess my way to say it would be, I mean, we're not going to answer it here tonight. I kind of agree with Dave that maybe the right way to do it is to just say, well, I'll say what I would say is, I like the proposal, but how about we follow up with kind of, you guys come back with like this sort of, the proposal of like, okay, here's what we would do. You would do the custodian, okay, there's this money over here, it may be, not so much, big dollar amount, but like, okay, here's how it would go. Even if you want to include, the money that, well, we would have to, how that would work for using that space.
Right.
Okay, just put it all out, and then we can see it and say, and you guys would kind of say, okay, here's what we recommend.
I'm not asking if we're going to do supply custodial service. If we already have somebody coming here cleaning both floors, it doesn't make sense to split up in 2 different.
Right, we want to do the thing that makes the most
just-
sense. Right.
It's a separation of.
And but let's just make sure, make it work out.
I think
And then we can, kind of give the
so
final
what
approval.
you're
but
looking for are the details.
I'm sure it could be worked
Before
out.
next
Right.
June.
Yeah,
We'll-
right,
We'll know
anytime.
in budget.
Right, talk to Grant.
Probably enough to say we're pretty good with the proposal, and it could be figured out how to.
I hark back to when we had our, argument over control of EJRP, oversight of EJRP, and one of the things that was brought up was just that, the money going back and forth. And this is, I think, jumping right into that,
It's like an
you're
example.
talking about hundreds of dollars or whatever it is, but, it's like, okay, we're crossing a line now. I don't want to be the food for someone to go say, oh, see, I told you this. And,
Right.
And it'll be needed in the budget time anyway, because that's the budget for next year. And so that basically would be needed in a couple of months,
Right.
by the end of the fall, basically,
Right.
to kind of have that ironed out. because then that would be showing up in the budget then.
So yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, nothing. I'm not arguing against what you're proposing. It's just
Yeah.
mine's just the financial, dotting the i's and crossing the t's.
So in the end, we it sounds like we like
Oh right,
the idea.
I'm not voting this down regardless of. But it's a
But-
concern I have. It's all. It's a.
Can the motion somehow include a contingency of
Right, we need to address
financial
this, right?
arrangements?
Right.
I don't know what the right term or for that would be, but
Well, we approve
I mean,
planning.
something
for-
that addresses the concern
we,
here
we approve
about-
for the planning of the use of this building, pending any, financial, implications that, I don't know how to exactly word that, I guess,
Right.
but,
Well, how about a business plan to include the financial,
Breakdown of services.
yeah.
and who's gonna make that arrangement though? I mean, I don't know if we
I
need
think
to have
it would
that
be
part of it, but I
between,
mean,
Brad and Grant and Paul.
Yeah.
okay,
And then during budget, they would bring that proposal. But I think what I'm hearing is that you're in the process of a motion that would provide consent based upon follow-up of a business plan.
Correct.
With the resources that are needed to shift and maintain the program moving forward.
yes.
That
I
capture
think
it
that-
well?
it's good enough.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
You good with that?
Yeah, and so, and those numbers, we can work with Bruce and Grant to get those. And so in preparing that plan, it's looking at what's needed to maintain this building, that those costs are covered if we're utilizing the down,
The space.
right. It's not, because those I can easily track down, but if it's a different just rent amount, that would be something I guess you guys would, but it sounds to me like it's just the cover of the services,
And costs.
yeah.
I think
Yeah.
as long
Something-
as we're switching
Right.
rooms, I think it's a wash
right.
on rent.
Right, it's
So-
just something to show that
Covering
we
the cost we have.
considered
currently.
this.
That we
We
considered
thought
it.
about this, we didn't just,
Right.
just sweep it on the rug saying,
Sure.
oh, it's just a few dollars,
Right.
Right.
Okay.
It's gotta show where,
right.
the shift in which
Resources.
bucket it's coming out of. I realize
Yeah.
who's filling those buckets is the same group of people, but where it comes from needs to
Yeah,
be
right.
shown on paper, I guess. It needs to be
And the
shown
reason
properly.
it has to be shown on paper is how you fund your schools with Act 60 money is
Right.
different than how you do the municipal side. So it's very important that whether it's just showing a shift of utilizing a different space, I think on paper to prove to taxpayers that we're doing it above board and correctly. So.
All right, so we've talked about all this. Now, who's got some good words for a motion for this one?
I will move that we accept the proposal for the EJRP use of Park Street South. Do we need to include north? We've got north and south, starting June 15th, 2015, with the caveat or contingency that we will be brought numbers at budget time. Is that okay? Dollar amounts at budget time? How do you want to word it?
Yeah, whatever.
The business
Fine.
plan.
I think we discussed what we meant, so.
Right, I'm not too concerned about the wording.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, is there a second?
Sure.
So we have a motion by Marla and a second by Tim. Are there any further discussion? Anybody suddenly think of something new between motion and second? All right, All the-
I haven't, but while you got, we got to vote on it.
yes.
Yeah.
So all those in favor of the motion to, of the proposal for moving preschool to Park Street South, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Okay, Marla, you had something
Well, I
that just came to
think
mind.
while Brad's here, one of the things I've said that we oversee EJRP, and I feel bad because we don't have Brad at a lot of meetings, and I think we miss some of the rich things that Brad has, and I'm glad he's here tonight. And I think they're doing a wonderful job, and should be noted that they are. It was the park, going back and walking through there this summer, the changes that Harlan has done
Mhm.
and has been accomplished. I think everything is a plus over there.
Thanks.
And kudos to your
Yeah.
management, is how I feel.
I think the staff goes above and beyond. I mean, for Adam to seek out and figure out that we can have free breakfast and lunch for the community
Yeah.
at one of the schools is amazing, you know, and what they, I think what you guys bring to this community is really fantastic. So appreciate the good work.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I guess just the pool is such a great resource and it's so awesome, but that does remind me, because you had sent us, you had included in one of our meetings a while ago about some work, and I was actually talking to Kevin this summer about there is stuff that needs to be done at the pool.
Yes.
And so maybe at the end of the season, you know, I don't know whether you would just include that in one of your reports, or whether, you know, you could come again and like maybe we just have to have like kind of, maybe that's before the budget time, or maybe it's easy enough to just do it during the budget to like kind of go through that, to be like, okay, what do you want? What do you guys want to do at the pool? And like, what
Yeah.
are the, maybe you could give us some kind of some choices.
Yeah.
You know, well, if we wanted to go big, okay, we could do this stuff, but if we want to just do really what needs to be done to maintain, okay, we got to get at least this much.
Yeah.
Just so people have we have a
Right.
good idea of what that is, because I know that's kind of a big thing that's hanging out there.
Don't we have to meet with the trustees in September?
We modified our agreement to
Oh.
once a year, an annual meeting that'll be in March, and I
March.
think it's the first March,
It's the first Wednesday in March. Yeah.
Wednesday in March.
That might be a good time for a report out,
Yeah.
if it's ready.
Yeah.
And the other thing I just wanted to say, Brad went to something, I think his commitment to this community. He was at the Vermont School and Municipal Leadership Conference on Education, Property Tax, and Funding Reform that was held at the South Burlington High School on August 14th of this year.
With Marlon.
And
Yes.
with, yes,
Okay.
but he was up in the back of the room and I didn't see him till later. But what's interesting, they've charged us with bringing back to boards and talking to municipal boards. They gave us a charge when we left, so I would be curious to have Brad there to take his feedback. I'm curious what you thought in the afternoon. I didn't see anything major. I
No.
didn't see any solutions being given. It was just basically listening to everybody's problems with Act 60, 68 and how it's affecting their communities.
Mhm.
But I was hoping there'd be some attempt at coming up with some solutions. Didn't happen.
Yeah, I heard that saying.
So.
Tim, to your point, Brad worked with Grant to develop a capital improvement plan.
You're
So we
right.
have one for our
Mhm.
schools and for EJRP.
So that's where it shows up.
So we
Yeah.
see,
Okay.
Grant takes pictures of the swimming pool. for
Yeah,
us
there were
and-
some pictures. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
some in the-
that's what I
in the
remember,
report this
yeah.
past year, yep.
Grant doesn't take the pictures.
Yeah, you
Oh,
could try
you?
to slide.
Oh, I always see.
Yeah.
The other thing that's coming up is the pool and bond vote's gonna be paid off
Yeah.
very
2019.
soon, so I
Is that 19?
think
Yeah.
the advisory council will be talking about strategic planning.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely on the horizon. It seems far away, but it's not. So just a few more years before that's paid off.
And your 10-year strategic plan is in what year?
That's done in 2017, so that's also coming up. I think that's in next year's capital plan that we'll renew that. And then in 2 years out in the capital plan, there's probably some money to do some space analysis of what types of rec facilities would be beneficial to the community.
Mhm.
So
Right.
do you have a team that's going to measure, go through some evaluation of your accomplishments toward the 10-year strategic plan for EJRP? And
Probably next year.
evaluate it
Yeah.
next year?
Because it expires in 17, so next year is probably when we'll look at it and start to work with somebody to develop another one. We worked with Betsy Orsolay
Right.
last time, and so we'd be interested in at least talking to her about possibly doing something again.
Good. Wow, 10 years.
I know.
Nice.
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
And, Brad, was there anything else about from EJRP to report out?
Nothing.
I know you covered a lot of things. I just wanted to make sure.
No, nothing that jumps to mind.
Okay.
Thanks so much for the preschool. It's really helpful for us to be able to plan now, and I think it'll be really great for the program to be side by side. So we're excited to get working on that.
Well, one of the things I was thinking about as we're talking about that, one of the things I found really helpful during the year that we meet at the different schools is that, I can't always find the time to get to every school on my own. However, by having the meetings in each of the schools, it kind of forces me to get in there and look around all the different things that are being asked to make changes, or just to see the environment that the kids are in every day. Well, now that we're going to be meeting at EJRP, or Maple Street, that'll give us a chance also to be there in that location.
Yeah.
As far as a site visit, I guess
Yep.
we can
I think
consider that
that's-
as something take advantage of.
Yeah.
So
I think with having to consider starting strategic planning, it would be valuable for us to be over there.
mhm.
Because then Brad could give us site visits, or Harlan.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Sure. Thanks.
Thanks for coming, Brad.
Sure.
All right. I think Judy's got some update for us on
our
the data management system.
It's been really exciting to have our Edmund Inform student assessment data management system up and running. Last week during our educational leadership team meeting, we began training with consultants that came from this company in California, and technology director who has used the program for many years also joined the representative. So it was great to have somebody who's actually using the system and showing us how they make how she uses and makes reports. We have populated the system over the summer, and in your org notes you see that we've included the 2013-2014 student level data that includes the attendance, discipline, health, literacy, math, progress report and report cards, and state assessments. And then after our educational leadership team meeting, 2013-14 data will be added to Inform. That'll include K-5 local literacy data listed in the assessment plans, K-2 local math assessment data, and discipline data organized by incident type. So I have to say, one of the big learnings or takeaways I had from this experience is the need to clean our data first and to ensure we were all using the same protocols as far as how you enter every piece of data, whether it's, Mr. period, blah, blah. It was quite it matters.
Well, it certainly makes it easier to group things together.
It surely does. So that calibration and the work with our registrars and Kim Gower's work, as well as Helen Kurtikova's work and Mike Meyer in helping us to populate the system, was a excellent experience, but also allowed us to begin that shift from just grades to putting standards in. And this movement to standards-based reporting is really going to be helpful in this environment, to be able to provide input about how students are achieving and progressing with the individual standards. So The data's in, and several teacher leaders, educational technology integration specialists, and leaders throughout the SU trained all day Monday of last week and Tuesday. We're in the second year of implementation with this plan, so we'll continue to talk about those training cycles and what kind of reports we can generate, and learning how to generate those reports based on the data that we have within the system. We have some early adopters who are really interested in, as teachers, in messing with the data and being able to create reports and have that information at their fingertips. A lot of excitement through the SU. To do this work also this year, we had to create common local assessment plans in math and literacy. In literacy, it was a bit easier because we had a lot of formative assessment plans. In math, not so much. But the wonderful feature about this system that we bought, which was much more robust than I originally anticipated, is that there's an online assessment builder, and so there's over 70,000 tasks. That it's a formative assessment bank. The teachers can go in and create their own formative assessments, and what we found is there's just not good middle level math or reading and literacy assessments. We've created a supervisory union-wide writing rubric that we've been piloting over the course of this past year, and this year we'll continue with that and calibrating with that. So as we're becoming more adept of committing to not only what assessment are we going to use, what assessments are used for diagnostic, what are used for progress monitoring, what are used for screening, when are they implemented, so we have implementation windows identified for each of the grade levels, and then what time does that data get loaded into the system. So all that work has been coordinated and communicated over the summer, and our principals have played an incredible role in ensuring calibration around our ability to look across the system now and say, everybody implemented that formative assessment at such and such a time, and we're able to then ask the question, when a child started in kindergarten in the Fontes and Pinnell, and they started with their placement of where their reading level was, or then we would know that, and then we would know where they gained in the January assessment, and then we'd be able to show that growth in their May assessment. So it's being able to really drill down, but then to ask across the system how many of our children made growth across that system, be able to make both curriculum adjustments, teaching strategy adjustments, and measure the interventions that we're using as far as growth for students. So there's great promise and excitement, but still a lot of work that lies ahead, but we have a good foothold on it. And this is really groundbreaking. It's my 22nd year in the SU, and we finally have, it's like finally getting the student achievement data system so that we can do this work and not be dependent on that one state assessment, but rather to be able to have a picture of the student going through the system. At the same time, our K-5 schools have really led the way as far as transitioning to standards-based report cards, and parents at that level now are having an understanding of what their students are learning and the progress they're making with the standards. This coming year, ADL will report out through a standards-based report system for grades 6 through 8, and the high school is also moving in the direction of proficiency-based graduation requirements. So the whole system is under transition, but what's wonderful is parents coming through now have that understanding, so it's easier to make that transition into the middle years when you can appreciate so much more because reporting on a standards tells you so much more than your child got an 86. What does that mean? You know, so now you know where they're secure, what they're learning, what the next standard is in the progression, and I think that it's taken the system a long time to be able to get to that shift, but there's been great support from the state in moving this direction, and some of the mandates that we've been required to implement, including personal learning plans that will play into this system as well. It has a learning plan component to it, so we're happy to see that, and it also has an electronic portfolio, which we haven't purchased that part of the system, but there are components to it that we can build on for our future work with standards-based reporting and progress monitoring and growth, identifying growth strategies for our students, and the feedback will be immediate, and it's also computer based, so it'll give students an opportunity to have those experiences before they use the SBAC, which is also a computer adaptive testing environment. So as we transition the system, our kids will be better prepared for success when they encounter that state assessment, which will be this fall. Last year, the kneecap was this past year.
Right.
So lots of excitement over the data system. Hallmark of our work this year on our work plan.
So I think I might understand. My question was about, it just didn't list about loading 6th to 8th grade data.
Right.
And is that because it's not standards based and it's going to be
Right.
now? And
Right.
so we're just going to not load the old and just start
Exactly.
the standards based,
Reports that we're
because otherwise it
generating.
won't line up anyway.
Right.
Because
And we'll have better
before it was
formative assessment
ABCD
tools. Right.
Anyway, so like, okay, so that's what,
That's, yeah,
in terms
exactly.
of backloading,
Backloading.
right, that's why it's just, everybody will get loaded as standards based
Right.
then.
Now, I'm not saying that this is going to be an easy transition. I think that at the middle level, they'll take those parents who haven't had the experience before some time to adjust to standards-based reporting. Like anytime you change a system that people are used to, we all grew up and have experienced our progress through numeric grades,
Mhm.
and so there's, it's hard to make that transition immediately. I think the important thing to know is the high school is and will be making that transition as well. So and this is required. So it's a requirement throughout the state, and it's within our education quality standards that we make this transition, and it will be happening across the state. So that makes it a little easier, but I think the important thing for the board to know and to be able to communicate is the value of standards-based reporting. Lori Singer has a really informative PowerPoint on the ADL website. I think that helps parents see that shift, what it looks like. And if you have concerns from parents that contact you, it's certainly an opportunity for you to refer them to the principals and or to teachers who can speak to that transition as well. But I'm just forecasting to you that there's going to be a change, and all changes take some time for the culture to accept and appreciate them.
Yeah, that was actually the biggest kind of issue and concern at the 6th grade parent meeting.
Mm-hmm.
There was like a lot of like, okay, and then when they said, oh, it's going to be standards-based report cards, it was like, there was definitely a group of people who were like, what, and like questions about, well, is the high school doing it? And at the time,
Yeah.
the answer was not clear that the high school was going to be doing
Yeah.
it. So that's actually really helpful to know,
Yeah.
because then that could be part of the communication.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we don't know the date yet.
Yeah,
exactly,
the high school
but-
has a proficiency-based, a team of teachers working through proficiency-based reporting and learning opportunities, and their work, the highlight of ELT this year was the shared work that we saw across the system, So their work will really be helpful in informing and encouraging the trust in that transition to standards-based reporting. And it'll help to inform people about what the standards are and what kids are expected to know and be able to do and demonstrate, which includes a very rigorous and high expectations through our curriculum. So.
The one thing I can say about the standards, I told this to Lori, from my experience with them, I'm a school board member. I'm super engaged with my kids learning. The one thing that is kind of true about the standards and the way that it comes on the report cards is it's filled with edu-speak. It's filled with terminology that is not used in day-to-day adult work conversation. It really is detailed about school and about education. So that, in terms of communication, I think there's a big piece of that around there about all the ways that both, sort of us on the board and then through the schools, we have to work on, and that's where we can do a lot of improvement.
Well, that'd be great to bring to the communications task team, because again, it's systemic across all, and what a great service the boards could play in helping with the communication of people who are so used to it, we don't see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a lot what it is, and it's very useful, and some things need to be very specific, but then it starts to not bridge the gulf to, everyday people.
Well, it's the same issue we talk about come budget time and presenting it.
Yes.
That was their main thing. We don't understand.
The same thing.
It's very difficult to understand.
Yeah.
And there's a way we can talk about it that makes more sense.
And our data system, I think, will help with that, because it can generate some reports and use some graphical information to show progress as well. And those reports can be made available at report time. So I think absent a system that can create sort of those visual graphics that help you make sense of what you're reading will be another compliment. So thank you for sharing that and identifying that task with the communication task team.
Thank you.
Question before we leave this subject.
Okay.
The No Child Left Behind Act, the standards base that we're doing and all this work in our data management, is there a time period where we aren't going to have to consider the data of No Child Left Behind? Because we knew when it was put into place years ago, it wasn't going to work. It was as we got into these further years out. So is this the step that the state is taking to?
Well, we knew it was a flawed accountability system from the get-go. We've been trying to take data from an assessment that was never crafted to measure the growth and progress of students and evaluate proficiency from that. This year was the year that if only one child in our school, in any of our schools, was not deemed proficient on a state test, then we were identified as low performing. It was always the intention of No Child Left Behind to identify public school through a lack of performance. So this year, we reached that highest standard, and every school in the state of Vermont, with the exception of those that field tested the SBAC this year, have been identified as low performing. And we don't agree that all our schools are low performing. Secretary Holcomb crafted a memorandum to parents and caregivers that I thought was exceptional. And I think it counters with other data points, some of our performance as a state. I think she talks about and goes on to talk about some very valuable questions set about what parents can ask and caregivers about the evidence your school provides for your child's growth and proficiency, and really bringing it back to the individual child. I think this question set was something that we'll continue to build from. One of the questions are graduates of your school system prepared to succeed in college and/or careers, and our high school 2012 graduation rate is 89% for all students, but students who are not free and reduced lunch students or students with disability are 95% on a 4-year average. On a 5-year average, it increases even more, and on a 6-year average, it's one of the highest in the states. So our graduation rate, there's other indicators for us to look at that show that our schools, if our schools were underperforming or low performing, parents would be rallying. And where this law came into existence was to really address urban areas where large urban areas where there were other major issues of schools, and to bring forth the genesis of the charter movement, quite honestly. So there's a lot of pieces within this that has shaken the confidence of public education, but we don't agree with the flawed accountability system. We know our schools are not underperforming, and if people would buy into the fact that your child given one test once a year shows, and any child with a disability or from a group where there's high poverty, that any one child not being proficient deems a school to be low performing, you have to just put your common sense hat on and say, really, is that the way we would judge our schools? So I think there's going to be more communication on that, but I think that now that we've reached this pivotal point in the law, the flawed system becomes more pronounced for everybody to see. And
yeah, I mean, my thing is I want to give it the consideration it's due, which is the circular file, right? However, in principle, however, it gets communicated. So therefore, what that means is we should communicate something.
Right.
You know, in addition to, she's doing it from the state level. I think that's our job from our level.
Right.
Right. So here's this thing that said our schools are low performing. Are they? I think we're going to say no. Okay. So now how do we do that? That's what we really need to do here. You know, and to me, I think the other thing is it's simply like, well, it's obviously not a working system. You can't call every school low performing. That's just stupid. That doesn't do anybody anything now. So okay, good. You can forget about a system that doesn't work. What system do we use? Well, for right away, I think for us is, okay, we just come back to our mission. What was our mission? To do continuous improvement. Are we executing that mission? If we can communicate that, and we can show why we're communicating, how we can communicate that, and then that right away we're going to communicate it's more than just this test. So we don't even have to say anything about it's just one test, because we're going to show, we could show in multiple ways how we're doing it. But I think that's the challenge. We haven't done that yet.
Because we
haven't
haven't
really
had the
put
system.
it out there. We haven't said what percentage of our kids are proficient. Can we say? Yeah, I'm sure we can. So that's what we need to do.
Right, and I think that happens at your parent-teacher conferences and through your child's report cards. However, it's not a systemic approach.
Right.
And that's where our data system will help us make that transition. But there's a couple things that where we bump the road. One is this happened. Next year, we transition to a new state assessment in the spring of 2015, and we're also just bringing on a new data system, and we've changed our Common Core state standards. So our standards have changed.
Yeah.
There's been a series of changes that have happened, so the confluence is all going to come together this spring, and from that point forward, we'll be so much better positioned to communicate exactly what we need to communicate about our students' growth and progress.
What Tim said is something I was thinking about, is when I read the letter that came from Secretary Holcomb, is that her name? And that you're planning, I read your letter and what is being put out. And it was going home with students, but there's going to be things in the newspaper, and there's going to be things that go out into the community among the people that don't have children in the school system. And that, to me, is, we got to do some concentration or decide how to communicate. I don't know if that's the communications task team, but I think otherwise it's going to rumble through the community. We've got to get out front of it before it shows up.
I agree.
And those are people that have supported the budget without having kids in the system. You know, we've always had such a wonderful community to.
Right. And we have that support in the base of the community, so I don't think we're too worried about it, but it's just helpful to
get ahead of
communicate, you know, put out our message compared to this message.
Right, you know, to avoid misinformation or misperceptions permeating throughout the community.
And the language that's used is the difficult part, you know, the education speak, like how you talked about this is occurring, that's occurring, this is coming, and everything's going. Just very simple terminology changing from one assessment to this one, and then this all meeting. I don't know how you do it in a letter, but just graphing it out, I think, would tell people why some teachers wanted to retire early.
Yeah, it's there's been so much so fast that it's been really hard to communicate. But you have to think of it just in the most simplistic way, as what we want children to know, be able to do, and to demonstrate has changed. It's changed through when and where we expect that learning to happen throughout the K-12 system. So we've been realigning reporting systems, assessment systems, developing ways to dipstick and measure, and now creating a system that we're populating to show. Like, one of the slides that I was most enamored with was it was a list of the math standards, and it was a graph, and it showed the students' proficiency with the standards, and there were 2 standards where students struggled. So they began the conversation, well, why are students, and this was the other system that was using this as an example, why were students in the 5th grade struggling? And the data through a system, when you see it like that, allows you to ask good questions and then to dig deeper into what those results were and what they meant. We haven't had that ability. That capability has been, we've been paper and pencil, Word, Excel sheets.
But I think the key thing is that's actually, we're actually getting ahead. So that's actually the future, right? What caused us to be called low performing has nothing to do with that.
Right.
Because it's not that stuff yet. It's actually the old thing, and okay, this technicality of we're going to call everybody low performing if it's not 100%, right? And so then what the real information around that is what's our actual percentage?
Correct.
So can be our answer. And how do we perform relative to the other New England schools, for example, if it was on the kneecap? You know, are we basically like she did for the state? We're like number 4 in the country. We use some of that info at budget time, you know, and I think there's a couple of slides we used at the budget
Yes,
time
it's-
as well to
yes.
say, so we kind of come back to that information, but then also put in like, no, we're confident in our system because we've been getting steady performance. Because we're regularly with our elementary schools
Right.
in whatever.
And you've seen
The
a
comparison.
decade of data showing
Exactly.
you
So we
that
just-
85% of our students plus
That's, I
are
think,
proficient in reading.
exactly. So I think that's what we do is come back to
Mm-hmm.
that kind of information. It's just reiterating it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's, you know, improving
Right.
in the future. Okay, to do more things. Okay, but there's also some changes
Mhm.
with new standards. So,
So give
okay,
it some
Right.
time
we
to
expect
align.
to say, you know,
Mhm.
differences, you know, with that.
Mhm.
But that's what but okay, this is the direction we're going
Mhm.
in. So yeah, I mean, I think it's we can answer the low performing piece with the
Mhm.
older information actually, because
And the
that's
com-
what it's addressing.
And the comparison across the country is some states didn't adopt as rigorous standards as we adopted 10 years ago. And some didn't adopt as rigorous assessments as the NECAP, 4 states did.
Right.
So the beauty of the Common Core is that a majority of the states are using the
Yeah.
Common Core
Yeah, I
state
think it's-
standards, so
yeah,
you
right.
can do some comparison.
Right.
And it's an apples to apples comparison, 'cause it's the same standards, and it'll be the same assessment, which we've never had cross country. So, exciting times. And, you know, we'll again be, I think, people like Amy Cole can be in attendance at a communication team meeting to help frame communications around this topic, because I think you're absolutely right. We don't want our public to be shaken by, to have their confidence shaken in our schools in any way. I think that they see, you know, 80% of our kids going on to college from Essex High School, and many other indicators that are much more visible in this community. So I think that we are lucky in that regard, but it does require the communication that Tim's talking about, and a thoughtful plan around that, which is what that public engagement piece means in the annual work plan.
Right. When is the next scheduled meeting for communications team?
Oh
Steve?
yeah, I just got it, so I don't know.
I don't know.
We haven't set one yet. None of the task
Okay.
teams
Yeah,
have
we don't
set
have policy
yet.
either.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't even have, I don't think any of the committees have their
Set up
schedules.
yet? Okay. Because that would be definitely, I would definitely like to see that as,
So should one of us send something out,
So, meeting with the executive committee on Wednesday, and we'll be able to see some direction from them as far as launching start dates for these
Okay.
committee meetings.
Yeah, I'd say
Yes,
that's
I
one of
know.
the priorities.
you can tell your fellow chairs if one of them is on the communications meeting, it's their job to send out the request for when we're gonna have a meeting.
all right.
How about that? If there's no chair, then we gotta decide.
I think what they wanted to do is have an opportunity at the SU level to talk about, meet with those people who are on those task teams so that they can collaborate or send out a meeting wizard to see
Yes.
what's going to
Yeah,
work
right.
most. So
So
we'll probably be getting some of those requests
SU
out
meeting?
soon. Yeah,
Will
SU.
we do that?
The-
Yep.
End of September.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's another,
So we
yeah.
need to do it before that.
Need to get
Yes.
going.
Yeah, okay. Great.
Okay. So that'll be one of the parts of my meeting on Wednesday. All right, so let's move on to appreciative inquiry. And one of the things at our planning day is that Mary Jane Shelley came and gave a presentation that I really enjoyed as far as talking about appreciative inquiry, what it is. Gave us some really good reference material, which unfortunately I haven't had a chance to even take a look at. I mean, gave us books and such to look at. But one of the things that, you know, that process was starting was, is this something that the Prudential Committee can benefit from participating in the appreciative inquiry process. She's written up a couple of proposals. One is a little more, is not as quite as meaty. 3 3-hour sessions to basically learn, about appreciative inquiry, to think through the approach. And then the second option that was offered was much more in depth, encompassing pretty much all of this next school year, I guess, as far as me. Right. And Jen did ask the question of
Brian.
Feedback.
Brian and Mark. I did hear back from Brian.
You did? Okay.
I did. I just got the email. He said it's been an incredible process for them, and he highly recommends going for it.
that was from Mark?
That was from Brian.
From Brian.
Yep, so U46. So he said he's happy to give us more detail in the future, but at least got us that information.
I think the two proposals, what I needed to know about the two proposals is the option 2 going to bring us more up to speed where the high school, the Union 46 board is at in Westford? Or are we still going to be a couple years behind them even with this option 2 process?
Well, I think if you went with a more robust training plan, which the high school board dedicated themselves to all last year and really understanding the tenets and methodology of AI, then it wouldn't take you long if you really spent some time. If as a board you have that capacity and commitment and interest, they did. And Brian's created a Google site that he's going to be sharing soon with the community to report out on their community engagement event that was in May. And it was about the entrance. One of their appreciative questions was about the entranceway of Essex High School. And so they had appreciative inquiries and interviews, and people gave lots and lots of feedback, and they took that feedback and made some dramatic changes to the entrance of the high school this year. And they're moving forward with strategic planning how to make even further changes. But what it does, in a nutshell, I'll just say, its value is in that it provides an incredible engagement opportunity. It's sort of like the experience that you might have had with Heart and Soul and the interviews that were conducted, those neighborhood interviews and conversations, and to really dig out the values within the community. This is a very similar process where the engagement happens in a way where that information is used then to inform your strategic plan moving forward. Some of you might have experienced it if you attended the safety dialogue meeting. Westford's first experience with it was their principal search, and several community members began training with it through that process. So I think that was the impetus to keep moving in that direction. And several of our staff have been trained. CTE is now having their 3rd year of a professional strand in AI. Suzanne Gringling, your new principal, is highly trained in that area as well. And across the leadership team, there's been some training. So it's been a real grassroots, forward sort of movement, and people are experiencing valuable outcomes from engaging in the process, and and engaging with their communities using the methodology. So it's hard work and it's time consuming. I think if engagement and visioning is something that you want to embark upon, it's certainly worthy of your consideration. And I encourage Jen, when she sent the question today, make sure to talk with Brian Donahue, have him come to a board meeting, or speak at the SU board meeting, and Mark Droppa, because they can speak about the work of their board, and you can, hear from them directly, because I don't really want to influence what board member to board member conversations could look like about it. But I think the timing is pretty critical as far as your capacity, and I think that's something you have to evaluate. And tonight when you're in executive session, looking through your board survey results and talking about your capacity, and see if it is something you want to move in that direction. Do you need more time, another presentation, more consultation with Mary Jane, or more information from Brian and Mark?
I don't think we know too much about it. I do have enjoyed Mary Jane. She was the one who was the moderator at the safety dialogue, and she stood out to me. And then realizing the connection, she seems open to talking about other options. And obviously, we can do these first three if we feel like it, and then move on if we see the value in it to the bigger picture. So that's an option too, I would imagine.
Yeah.
First three.
Exactly.
Right.
So come number 2, we could talk about it more if we want to embark upon that.
You're saying start with option 1?
Right, if we want to kind of get our toes wet, and then, because it's the same first 3 options on both proposals, then maybe, come the second one, we could say, okay, it's go time. Do we want to go ahead with this, or are we just okay with what we've learned? And as a board, how we interact, sort of thing.
This option 2 uses 2014 and 2015. So
Right.
I found that a little confusing because it goes September 2014, 3 hours.
Oh, I see. She just put it, there was a typo.
October 2015, so this is a 2-year proposal.
I think that's just a typo.
You think that's a typo? That's
Yeah,
supposed to
because then the
be,
next step is November of 2014.
Yeah, and it goes right
Yeah,
down
that's
through the
typo.
line, well, because that's the 15.
Yeah, that makes
so-
sense, that the rest of it,
So you think that's
to be
a
honest, I didn't even
typo.
notice it because I think in my mind I put the years.
Do it all through the year and then have it at the end of the year.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the idea, so.
Yeah, it made me
Confine
wonder,
to 1
okay,
year.
are we doing a 2-year?
Right.
And the way U46 board did the training is they tacked on that time before their board meetings. So they meet at 5 instead
Yeah.
of 6:30, and use an hour and a half to train.
In our case, it would be the other way. It would be tacking on, most likely tacking on
After.
sometime after the meeting, since we meet,
Starting
most of the,
3:30.
during the school year, our meetings are at 3:30. So, not to say that we couldn't start early also. I mean, that's something we can work out in a bit,
Right. Whatever works best for everybody.
Right.
Just do it.
but,
And 2 of those months you don't have a board meeting.
Yeah, no, I like the fall months because that's using time, in fact, maybe even rearranging it into months or where, we
right.
don't have to double up in the middle month and we do stuff
Yeah.
in September and November and use that time.
Yeah. Before you go into break.
That's our board meeting,
On the second option,
between and 10.
do the sessions, well, I guess there's only 2 after the election. I'm trying to get, is somebody who's coming in, say you've changed board members, someone's coming in April who hasn't taken their, is that gonna be 4 hours? They're gonna say, well, I'm not coming to that. I missed 90% of it,
Now Liz did that to an extent, right?
So interestingly, when U46 had a change in board members because of the April transition, and Ryan McLaren didn't run again, one of the things in Appreciative Inquiry is they have an advisory team. An advisory team is created for your board. It consists of board members and members of the community. So it so happened that Liz was part of that advisory team because of her connections to Heart and Soul. So when the actually, when the opening occurred for that board, you had a community member that was kind of close to the board's work, had shared some of the training, and said, I can run, I can fill that vacancy. So in a way, maybe there is some succession planning in it too. But that's how it worked there. And then the same occurred in Westford when they lost a board member, and a new board member came in. It so happens that she's had some of that AI training as well. So,
It's always going to be transition. I
yeah.
think, so.
No, but I mean, it's a valid question.
Yeah, well, it wasn't that much time. I was more was looking at it. It's like, oh, what's
Right,
only the last
looking
two
at the
meetings.
timing of,
It's only the last two. There's
Yeah.
really an event in there for
right.
sort of one of them. So
I guess I would feel more comfortable if we go ahead with this, starting with the first proposal, just to see, get more information and see if we want to continue on.
And I'm not saying we need to, that we have to make the decision tonight, but if we're not, what other information
yeah.
do we need to get? So, I guess I wanna know that first. If people are comfortable with making a decision tonight, what kinds of things do you wanna know more of?
I think what I would like to know more about of option 1 versus option 2. Option 1, the training and the foundations, those 3 meetings. I
Okay.
can understand that it's September, October, November, it matches up with option 2. But in the beginning of her option 2, her primary goals are to train the Prudential Committee and school leaders. So is this a little more robust, and we get to bring in, like, I'll use an example, Brad Luck and the rec department, they're going to be going into strategic planning mode. So is that where we could have some of them come in and join in the trainings? Or would they be able to come in and be in these other
Depends on what you
trainings?
want. It depends on what you want. I think it was there because you talked a little bit during planning day about involving your leadership. So I had shared that with her. It doesn't have to be that way. The U46 board and the Westford board, just because of the structure of their boards, meet with their principals, so those principals were at all of the trainings with the board.
That's a good
So,
point. I mean, could we bring, why are they different, and could we bring school leaders to the first option if we wanted to, because they seem like two very different goals.
Okay.
Well, I think it's seems pretty straightforward. The first option is like it's a few sessions to basically get us some kind of basic level, whereas some of the other people have already been trained. They're beyond that already, and so that's just the basic level. So probably that's just for us. It's more just like learning, not maybe a few little tiny things, but not like using it to pick a thing to do and do it, and use this as guidance to help us do it. Right. Yeah, I'm definitely up for the first one. That sounds great. It sounds like it's in line with getting us caught up to where some of the other groups are, both staff and the other boards. So that's to me that's almost like I think we should pretty much do that to get. Otherwise, we're kind of hanging out, not doing what everyone else is doing. And then I think we'll end up talking more about it later from the when we continue talking about the board eval. But I think that's where, depending on what we all kind of talk about at that in terms of what we have been doing and what we want to do, that's where I think it comes back to, if we all kind of we're then on the same page about, well, we really want to do something, then it allows us to come back to this option 2 to say, like, well, how can we work that into option 2? If that's the most important thing that we think we ought to do based on our, kind of self-evaluation, then that gives us something to really ask a question about, and then maybe we follow up with her on it, about well, this is something we identified we want to do, but we don't know how to do it, and the thing that I like about it is basically, let's say we decide we want to do something. Well, we can get help, or we just have to do it all on our own.
Right.
So whatever the thing is, right? So if we can configure it into something like this, then that's the great thing about it. It's like, okay, here's a methodology to do it. It's public engagement. Probably that's going to be whatever we decide we're going to do. It's probably going to involve that. So this gives you a way to do that. That's something we could probably work on. So, you know, I think it becomes more clear after we have that part of the conversation. So, you know, probably we could come back to it, and then it could be good if we're all on the same page.
All right.
Right now, at this time, I'm on board with option one,
Yeah, at least.
depending on what we come out with our evaluation, but at this time. And the only thing I would request, the training in September, I would like to make sure it doesn't fall on the dates of open houses. I want to be able to go to the open houses.
Right,
Right.
yeah, and that's the other,
Yeah.
that's another bit of our conversation tonight also is that. Okay, so let's hold off on the decision for the options till at the very least, till after we finish our evaluation tonight. And we'll either we'll be able to make that decision tonight, or, you know, we certainly can maybe come up with some questions, and this is probably a decision we can do over the phone I mean, since we'll have to do it as an action item, but the sooner we get it on Mary Jane's schedule, if that's what we want, the better,
That's,
is what I look at.
I almost think we should do the vote for option one if we're all in agreement. At least that we can start engaging her, and then after what comes out of our meeting tonight, then we could decide.
So you don't think that'll change from the meeting with the
Well, the
eval, that
dates,
as far
the
as
dates are the same as option one. Your September, October, November is the same.
But the primary goals are different, so that's the piece that I have a question about, because.
Right, 'cause that was-
Are we gonna be adding 3 more months to this and paying this and that, because we're not getting something out of the first one that we are out of the second one? Because the goals are very different.
Yeah, but I think that's the same first three, because you need the background to do the goal.
that's what I think too.
Yeah.
But
we can double
I-
check with her, but like, I have a hard time believing it's gonna be something totally different in the first 3 sessions,
Right.
because you need the background.
The second one is just that you actually end up
You just
planning
go
a
do-
community
you just continue.
engagement event, and you
Yeah.
actually go through
okay, so
use your learning.
David, do you have anything that you want to say with this?
Well, I'm probably not going to vote on this because I wasn't here for a presentation. The PowerPoint or PDF that I read through,
Right,
it didn't impress me.
okay.
You know, it was all. I understand focusing, on the positive. I mean, but it's too much. You got problems here. Well, let's ignore them. Let's keep doing the same thing if it's broken. Let's ignore it, right? And it's like, no, we better focus some attention there. Because if it's not working, to do the same thing over and over again is definition of insanity, right? Expect different results. So, I read that and it just seemed like real high level fluff. I mean, she probably said something that would, right? So that's why I'm not going to vote on it.
I got to tell you, Dave, I'm the person who looks at the glass as being half empty, not half full. And then when she went into how you use appreciative inquiry, it changed my opinion, because you use the positives, like we know, let's use our school district.
Oh, I understand what she's doing here and everything.
We've got some positives, but we've
Right,
also.
I understood that. But the
got
last
some-
page was like, oh, I'm not ignoring this. Having to fix the problems. But you are, right? They're not being addressed at all. So it's, I find it difficult to say, let's just focus. So I missed something here. So I don't want to vote against it,
Okay.
but I don't know if to vote for it. So if you guys think it's what we need to do, then I'll ride along, but I'm not going to vote on it. I just.
Okay.
I mean, I think the one thing was, I kind of shared some of the same concerns.
And I think it remains, for us to get trained and then to go with like the step 2 thing, it's really focused. It's not like we're converting our whole philosophy of life,
Right,
you know what I
I'm
mean?
sure that's right.
It's just,
Right.
it's pretty focused around that. And it's still far from, and I mean, I think Judy even kind of gave more information that like, well, some staff has been trained and some staff is using it like maybe CTE more than like other places, but it's not like we're running the whole system this way yet. You know, and so like obviously if we were going to start doing that tomorrow, that isn't really realistic
Right.
because we wouldn't know how to do it. But were we to get there, it would be this like long process where all those things would be kind of those concerns, I think, would have to be addressed.
Right.
You can't.
Right.
You you're gonna have to figure out a lot of different things and how you're gonna do it if you're gonna sort of migrate your whole organization, to keep going. This just says it's like there's been some initial work, and we just haven't done it yet. So this helps us get like a foothold, and then it's like, okay, then we'll see what happens from there, through time. That's kind of how I felt like what it was. And then by actually doing it, then that's where I felt like, okay, it would get more realistic about, okay, so how does it actually work?
Yeah.
For that exact kind of concern of like, how do you end up not ignoring the stuff and making sure that it's getting improved?
Right, that's
when there's a problem, even if you're focusing on the positive stuff, that's really working.
To me, I took it from her, it just reverses. You think of the positive things first and what you're doing positive. Then you look at the things that aren't going well and you use and analyze what's going well to bring up the others to that point. So it just reversed my thinking of that half empty, half full glass. And I'm glad we had that with her on annual planning day, because when I went to this Vermont School and Municipal Leadership Conference, what happened is you sit there and you have a couple hours where everybody, municipal and school, they were getting up and going on and on about this happened, that happened, this happened. But the reality is you're in Act 60, you're in Act 68. You can't change the whole system all of a sudden. Right. So I'm sitting there listening to this and I'm thinking, we're not going to give change. We aren't coming out of here giving legislatures anything to take back except we don't like it.
All the gripes and all the...
So, because there are some positives, I know from the funding that we had before Act 60 and 68 and living through it, there are some positives, and then maybe that's something we could use as appreciative inquiry, because that's coming up. This is the next, like they're saying that day, the whole status, this isn't going to change. It's going to, this funding mechanism is just going to be worse next year. So
on that vote, I just want to say, I feel like I'm an uninformed voter, so I don't want to vote on it. Right? So if you guys think it's great, then so be it. We'll see you in September.
All right. Then, since
Do you want me to make a motion to?
as it seems, we probably can do the vote right now. I don't see at least for option one.
So I'll make a motion and we can talk about it if we need to. So I could make a motion that we engage with Trifocal Consulting for the so-called option one training. We sort of approve ourselves to engage with them for this option one, which is the 3 months, 9 hours of training on appreciative inquiry, and we double check that that's basically the same 3 months as the option two, with sort of the leaving ourselves out, work in the option with Mary Jane to continue if we then decide we want to.
Yes.
Everybody got that?
Is that okay? Does that make sense?
So I take the motion as you want to go with option one, and then just leave it open that we can add on to the parts of option two if we find out from Mary Jane
Right.
that it would be
Correct.
covering the same things those 3 months.
And we would make
Okay.
another
decision.
actual
We'd have another
decision
action
with a
item.
motion to go to
Right.
option two at that time,
Okay.
Okay.
at a future meeting.
I'm
So
just
not-
thinking
yeah.
of the poor person who's the clerk Ben. I'm just thinking there must be an easier wordsmithing to
Oh.
this motion.
He's got
I think
He's got it.
We've got it pretty well. Okay, is there a
it.
second?
Just type.
I'll second it.
Second by Jen. Any further discussion? All right, so all those in favor of entering into option one with, for appreciative inquiry, say aye. Aye.
Are you abstaining? Dave?
Abstention,
Okay.
and one abstention.
So
So
4-0 to 1 abstention.
Right.
And in the minutes, we'll have to list who
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. All right, so that brings us, Marla hinted at something about the board clerk. I know we've talked about this a few times as far as continuing to have an individual do our minutes for us, basically, and allow the individual who's taken on the board clerk responsibilities to more closely participate in the meeting without the need to take copious notes. And I think it's worked pretty well. And so far, Ben has said he would like to keep coming and stay late with us into the evenings and get out of, leaving central office early during the day on our meetings in the schools.
Well, you know how I feel about it. I like to talk, so
Right.
I like to be able
Secretary,
to,
that's what you want?
I like to
Right.
be able to engage, but also I think Mike, when I got on the board, talked about how when he was clerk, he lost a piece of that engagement. And I think you do when
Yes.
you're conscious, so.
Also, the second piece of it is just what the requirements are. I think it's always existed that you have a certain number of days to get the minutes out, but it seems there's a bit of movement to be more rigorous about enforcing some of those rules, and having an individual who has the time to get that out in the amount of time that's allocated, which I think is only 5 days.
And I thought it used to include weekends. So if you had a board meeting on a Monday night, I had till Monday morning to get it to central office to get posted. It's not that way. It has to be there within 5 days, including weekend days.
Calendar days.
And to get that turnaround, I mean, you've got someone like Ben who's at central office that can get it turned around really fast.
Well, and he's a real asset to us, and if he's willing to do this, we'd be lucky to have him to do
Yeah.
it, so.
So it's on our consent agenda, but this was just to have the discussion about it here. Just to make sure if we needed to pull it, I guess, we could. All right, the next item is additional preschool partners.
So in your org notes, you see that the schoolhouse in South Burlington has provided documentation, and we've conducted a site visit, and they've met all the requirements to enter into an Act 62 partnership with the EJ. It's our recommendation that we add this preschool partner, which will allow more parents to gain access to the Act 62 slots, which are a required part of our EEI grant application in EJ.
Yeah, I have no problem adding
Yeah,
it.
great.
So, if there's would anyone like to just make a motion to add them? We can have the discussion during the.
Can I just say that it brings up a future agenda item for me to
Sure.
have a report from Aaron McGuire about,
Okay, yeah.
You know what I'm talking
Universal
about, right?
preschool?
yes, and the money that we paid to have this
Yeah,
done through the South Burlington schools did.
yeah,
Preschool.
I'd just like
Yep.
to see where we're at with that.
yeah.
I thought that was helpful last year before budget time to have that update. We had one, I think, by Amy and one by Aaron, and I found those kind of updates before the budget season very helpful.
So under future agenda topics, if you want to identify like your more, you know, what you want to hear more about, if it's Aaron first or something from Amy with the data or the transitions to standards or whatever it is you're curious about, you know, we're more than happy to provide learning reports, and the sooner I can
Okay.
know who to tap and they can schedule it, the better. But I know when you asked me AYP questions, Amy was more than willing to come in if it's something the board wanted to know more about, but at least communication around that might be something. But also the complete list and what it means for universal preschool and child resource.
Yes. Yep.
Childcare resource update too. And growing Essex kids.
Yes.
Those are all, you know, there's a whole body of work that's going on with that right now, so I think that would be advantageous for the board to hear more about that.
Do we ever anticipate the number of relationships we have with different partners being a significant labor impact? That, you know, how much time does it take per partner to manage per year? Is it a couple hours? Is it 50 hours?
Yeah, the visits or whatever.
That's
a good question.
I mean, it can be a consideration, but something just to keep an eye on.
Yeah. She would be best positioned to answer
does
that
that mean you're adding,
question.
you know, 0.1 FTE or something? You know, something
Right.
like that.
No, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm writing it down. For that.
So has anybody made a motion?
So I just need a motion to approve.
I will move that we approve adding the schoolhouse in South Burlington as an additional preschool partner under the Act 62 guidelines.
Is there a second?
Second.
Tim? Any other discussion about the adding this partner? No? Then all those in favor of adding South Burlington, the schoolhouse of South Burlington as an additional preschool partner, say aye. Aye. Motion passes 5-0.
Before I get to ask,
Yeah.
that's on the note where Bill Smith isn't going to do the numbers anymore.
Yeah.
Does he? I mean, it's always intriguing what he's done, and I'd love to take it over, something like that over. I would get a kick out of doing that. Is he looking to? Is he able to train anybody, or is that something he just kind of, you know?
I don't know, David. I could find out. I
somehow
know there is
mystically
someone.
understands it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it in this update, Ben? Grant. Yeah, Grant just made a connection with a person that's interested in doing it, moving forward at no cost.
Okay.
So, but it would be good to.
I'm a numbers person. I think it'd be
Yeah.
interesting, but.
It would be good to continue to keep a focus area on that. It has been unbelievable
Oh,
how
yeah.
close he has been at predicting our enrollment. It's just been phenomenal.
Well, Bill does it for other communities, and many years ago when I was in there and one of the ones I got started with the school district, I was one of the ones that went door to door counting heads.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and we had a couple women in charge of us, and we had to bring all our numbers back. And you're finding all these people in apartments, and then the numbers weren't always exact because maybe you didn't catch. So when Bill Smith started, I mean, he'd been doing it, and we had the numbers. His numbers were always on. And it was his process when he would talk to us and we'd have him report to the board in person. I couldn't believe the work he put into it. I mean, he
It's a
actually
passion.
goes to the town clerks and he gets the births,
Yeah.
you know, and goes through it. I
Right.
mean, very detailed. So,
He'll be missed. But at least we have somebody in the wings, because I was like, budget season, right around the corner. So we'll see how that's going to work. I'll give you more information.
Okay, yeah. If it's a full-time job, maybe they can't afford to do it, but not retired yet.
Number cruncher.
All right. Open houses. Open house dates. Which,
Last year you divided and conquered.
what's that? Oh, you want to go to?
I'm just saying.
I'll
what
be
I-
at Hiawatha and Fleming,
Okay.
for sure. And we'll try my
That's
best to
where
get to the
we
other ones too.
decide who's
Right,
gonna go where,
right.
But you'd be at Hiawatha and Fleming as a parent.
You know, what I was going to ask.
Did you want to try to be there as a board member? I mean, I assume you would want to sit, you don't want to be there as
Are
a
we
board.
gonna be doing anything specific this year?
Well, one of the things
Yes.
that I would like to, or at least I had thought of that, I'd like to get some feedback on from the parents is the access control system.
Okay.
I realize that, you know, that
It's a little early.
I know it's kind of early, but to at least get some first impressions, I mean, you know, to have an idea
Do
of
you have a survey? I mean,
Well,
if we're
I
gonna
was gonna-
do something.
thinking about trying to put something together for that. I haven't written it up yet, but in consultation with the former school, you know, wellness coordinator, maybe able to come up with a survey that would meet our needs for just gathering some of this information. That was where one of the things I was really curious about gathering from the open house this year.
And would you want people to be able to fill it out there or others to take it home and then turn it in
No,
somehow?
it would be something that would be very simple,
Couple quick-
that can be filled out there.
I guess my only question with that is, would we change what we're doing based on any of that information?
I don't know. I mean, it really, like I said, it's really just to get an initial
Reaction.
feel of.
We can think we care.
Well, I do. Actually.
I'm just kidding.
It's more about this is an opportunity to have the folks while it's new and you know they're still reacting to it and to kind of get where that is versus near the end of the year where you've become accustomed to whatever the routine is and then you know another evaluation or
We
another
might
survey.
find out something that changes
You know.
how we
But I don't know.
do
I
it. You don't
I just
know.
Are we including the teachers and the staff in that as well?
in this case it would be just I would
Just
be
the
just looking at the parents.
Okay.
Yeah, because you could follow up later with that, right?
With the
That's
staff.
Could be what we decide to do.
Right.
Maybe we would follow up later with that anyway.
If you want to think open houses, some years we've had tables, I don't know, we haven't done it every year, I guess. I mean, something on standards-based reporting, I mean, chance to, you know, how to interpret it,
Right.
whatever, I mean,
The, my request for open house this year is it's very awkward if 3 board members or more are there because of the open meeting laws. And they've tightened down a little bit. I would like all the open houses to be warned. Even if it's on, I don't know if you can do it as the same warning, so that way, because I would like to go to all of them. And if you've got 2 other people that have kids in the same school, that starts opening the door to
Right.
those new.
Yeah, 'cause it's likely, I mean, that I'll be at the ADL. You're probably going to go to the ADL open house,
And I want to be there.
just as a parent. So it physically puts us in the same place. And
Yeah.
I know the purpose for being there is not to meet; it's to be a parent. So, but rather than
Doesn't hurt.
just to avoid the impropriety, I agree. That's
It's-
fine.
It's the way the community could take it. I just think we're better off to have warned it
Mhm.
than not. Even if there isn't a quorum, then there's just no minutes that have to be taken. But
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that.
So if the first one is on the 11th, how soon could you get a sample of what you want to ask that we could see?
Oh, I'll have something next week that I can send out to everybody. I'll put that as
So
my
I guess-
task.
I'm just a little confused, like, parents versus board members, so, board, do we want to have a board presence at each open house? That, to me, that means like a fixed location. You're not wandering around. You're like the board presence, and there might be a sign that says the board. Talk to the board. Like that.
No,
that's your. Is that what we do?
No,
is that what
'cause
we've done in the
yeah.
past?
Yeah.
Okay.
we haven't. It hasn't worked I don't think it's worked very well. Part of it also is that
Okay.
each school has a different. They have their own way of doing the open house, and in some of them, the structure is such that it really doesn't work, even if to have a set board presence, versus, something where you are walking around, on your own volition to engage in conversations or whatever,
I think
types
you
of
asked a
things.
good question about your purpose.
What's the
your
intent? What's the purpose? That's basically what I'm
Yeah,
asking.
and I guess, my thought was, if you're going to be there as a table to inform or gather something, to mix, I guess, there's no purpose then, I guess, other than to.
When I do open houses, I like to go room to room. I go
Just the interface.
in, and if people are there, and I listen,
Choose to
and
go in the-
I get to meet teachers that I might not
Right.
know. And it's not to take away from parents. If parents are there talking to
No,
those
right, right.
teachers, I just observe
between.
and listen. And so I don't like the idea of a board presence. Last year, what worked out, I can tell you what really worked well,
Yeah.
was we handed out those 2 handouts on Calendar 2.0.
Mhm.
Fleming was excellent to be able to do that, because you come up the walkway and I could basically talk to everybody that walked by, and Dan was up beyond, and he kind of let me have that space. I don't know if I was pushy, but then
But it
when I
worked.
went to Summit Street, I wasn't aware. Mary did something in the auditorium, and there was no place at Summit Street to be handing out that was convenient. So it would have been nice if the principals, like Lori at ADL, does a speech or a gathering. So if the principals do that, it would be nice if they could say, and the school board has surveys out on a table, please take the time to fill it out and put it in a box. That's,
We would have
Well,
to give the
so-
principals the heads up, I think, first. Lori, ADL's great with it because she meets and they speak.
Mhm.
She and the vice principal speak to the parents, and then she says, oh, and these are the board members that are present here, and stand up. And we usually wear our badges as well, so people know there's a difference of parent or not parent.
We don't have
Do I
badges
have a
yet.
badge?
Why not? You
We
don't
still have your
all
badge
that.
from last year.
Yeah, but the dates are gonna be wrong on it.
Do we have dates on them?
I thought so.
No.
I'll have to
I wish I
look
could
at it.
remember. I just don't remember.
But,
Can I get a
mean,
badge?
Like Hiawatha, you just walk through the doors and you walk through the halls. I don't know what happens at Summit, but I
Same
think we
thing.
have to give a heads up to the principals to let them know, hey, we're coming. This
Well,
is
yeah.
what we want to do. Can we set up a table, and where can we do that? What's the best location?
Right.
And can we just
Okay.
leave the surveys there and let the parents fill them out?
Well,
Yeah.
so how about, if there may not be one at every school, but even where there is one, so that would be another option, is don't do the survey, do it in real time. So if they're amenable to 5 minutes,
See,
then
I
we
guess-
actually talk, and when she says, and here's the board member, then then we just say, okay, hi, hey, everybody, we just have we want some quick feedback on what you think about the new security system. If there's 2 questions, we just do it right there by a show of hands.
Well, that works great if there's a gathering.
like-
Now I don't know what.
The one thing
Was-
that I
Guaranteed response.
Yep.
I guess my concern would be is the parents are there for their children. They're there for a specific purpose, and I really don't want to get in the way of that. Could we just be there, look around, and send a survey home with the kids' workbooks to be returned to the secretary by this day, like they do other things? Could we do that so we're really not interfering with what they're taking their time out to do? Because I don't think people would stop. I don't think they would stop to take a quick survey because they're very focused on, okay, we're going here, and I'm seeing this.
Oh, so no, let me just clarify. No. We're speaking in the auditorium or in the cafeteria when it's a captive audience.
with raising hands?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
you
in that
ask
case.
the question, raise hands, okay, and if we have 2 or 3 questions, I mean, that's engagement, right? So that's real.
Which you could
know,
do at ADL, but you can't do at Hiawatha. It's 6:30 to 8, and some parent might come at 7, some come to 6:30.
No, you may not have the option to do it, but in the schools where
Right.
we do it, that's
Right.
something we could do,
Right.
Yeah.
right? And so, I'd kind of put that up there. I mean, I'd do it.
The Hiawatha open houses I've gone to, there wasn't any opening speech.
There wasn't a gathering.
Fleming, there
Oh, that's
wasn't
okay.
a gathering, and Summit Street, I was a few minutes late, and I heard that they,
Well, Mary did things
was
a little
one.
bit differently in that hers was,
in the gym.
the parents
something.
would gather in the classrooms of each of their child. So that's where the
Oh, that's
the
right.
presentation of the open house was done. And then all of the kids would gather in the gym.
Right.
So that one was slightly,
Yeah.
I think
Yes.
if you really want to solicit feedback and you want an open-ended question to say, any other thoughts or remarks that you would like to make about this, positive or negative, and get it written out, give them a month. Put it in for the teachers to send home with the children and return it back to the front office by this date. I think we'd get much more information and we really aren't infringing on the parents' time.
well, let me put something together and then have it to you next week. And whatever makes sense,
Yeah.
You
can
got
go
other
ahead and do.
things
I mean,
you
it's-
wanna
That makes
survey
sense.
on?
Yeah, so we can
Right.
see it.
And I realize, because it can vary between the 4 schools, because the 4 schools have
And the
very different ways of doing
sensitivity
things,
of
and so,
parents'
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
and that's fine.
Yeah, I'm just trying to capitalize. I'm just kind of really putting it out there because that's what it is. That's the antidote for people don't come to the meeting. It's no problem. They don't have to come to the meeting because we're going to come where they are,
We'll come to you.
right? And so but that's all we need is 5 minutes. We don't want to take up a lot of time, and that's really not a lot of time. I'm sure we could figure out how to work that in, for like 1 or 2 questions, if we have the questions that we want to,
Right.
ask.
And that's what I'll,
So there's right. Well, no, but that could be separate from,
yes.
a survey with more
A more
feedback.
detailed,
There could be other questions that we want to ask that, are just, feedback.
right.
I honestly think that this is a conversation that Judy could have with the principals, and then they could let Mike know. I'm comfortable with them talking as an educational leadership team with them, considering what they would think would be the correct thing to do. Ask them what's the correct thing, and if they do hold a gathering, then it would be their
Mhm.
choice without them feeling like we're infringing, maybe.
Yeah, we would be requesting 5 minutes, that's all.
Right.
Okay, so,
But we have to have something to ask, but if we don't have that now, then so maybe after our self-eval, we'll come up with something. If we do, we know we can do it.
but in the meantime, as far as the actual dates and who to attend,
Well, you've got children at ADL,
Yep.
and you've got a child at,
One at Fleming, one at Hiawatha.
okay, you've got ADL, right?
I've got ADL.
Dave has ADL, so I think you guys are as parents, then you better plan on me being there as a board member at open house.
At ADL.
At ADL,
Jen.
either Jen and
Oh,
I.
Yeah.
I think Jen and I,
That's what you want to do.
I think
Mhm.
Jen and I should be at ADL for sure. And that way you guys can do your parent thing. What date is that one?
9/11.
9/11, okay.
So ADL.
Yeah.
This year it is. This year, definitely, it feels like. Okay, so then what about Summit?
Good. Like,
I mean, whatever, I'll do all of them.
Well, what's the date for Summit?
9/23.
23.
I
I will try to be there. I'll just put
I
it down
can-
and I'll let you know if I can't.
Okay, so Jen and Marla,
I want to try to be there.
okay. Hiawatha? So Jen's gonna be there as a
I'll be as
parent,
a
so.
parent.
What's the date on that one?
9/16.
No, I can't make that one at all.
As long as there's not a leadership testing meeting, I can be there. I'm not sure when they're sitting. I'm hoping none of those dates are going to conflict with our,
Right.
Yeah,
A lot of
just not.
dates.
so.
Okay, so
Most
Marla
people
for,
I'm
well,
gonna try.
more or less Marla for
Or AI.
Hiawatha, like 90%
Marla's
sure.
a constant.
That'd
David?
be good, because you know Summit
Can
Street,
you do
that's why I like to
Hiawatha?
go to
No,
Hiawatha.
Summit, I don't wanna go there.
Right,
Yeah.
and then Fleming is what day?
The 17th.
The 17th?
I'll be there.
So she'll be there as a parent. Dave, could you go to that one?
You gonna be there? Because I want to try to be there.
Right, so we got Marla on everything.
Do we know the times?
They're all at 6:30 with the exception of Hiawatha. They often start like at 6, I thought.
Okay, so let's see. ADL's at 7
Oh,
on 9/11.
that's 7. Oh, okay.
Fleming is 6:30 to 8 on the 17th.
Mm-hmm.
Hiawatha is 6:30 to 8 on the 16th. And there is no date for Summit on the website, so we need to look into that. I don't have that
It's not
time.
9:23?
I'm sorry, we don't have the time.
We don't have the
I don't
time
have the
for
time
it.
for that
Okay.
one. It's not on the website.
And that'll be the one that I mean, because new principal, new routine, so I won't know what,
I would assume it's 6:30, but we need
Yeah.
to check on it.
Yeah.
as far as how she wants to run her open house.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, I've got ADL was going to be Jen or Marla and possibly Jen as the board reps. Summit, I've got Jen and Marla also. Hiawatha, I had Marla and Tim, and then Fleming, I had Dave and Marla. The 23rd is what day of the week? Is it a Tuesday? Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm coming back. That's why none of those days work for me. The only one that works for me is the one I'm going to as a parent. So, okay. Everybody set with that? I mean, it's a fluid thing too. I mean, if you can't make it, then just let me know so that
Right.
we can find out if somebody else can go. So,
Just
We'll
let
get
us
those
know if
word.
you want some kind of, if you want your bio sheets run off, if you want. Pause before you say no.
yeah.
Bio
let us know if you
sheets
need
with home
anything.
addresses and home phone numbers,
Right.
isn't that what?
All right. Next up,
I'll come find you.
yes, is the consent agenda. So we removed the recommendation for professional appointment, and we've added the recommendation to approve the tuition waiver. And the tuition waiver was brought to the meeting, so I think everybody has it. Did everybody get a copy of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So if you haven't had a chance
want
to
a
take a look
motion?
at it, just to familiarize yourself with it.
Well, I have a question on this.
Sure.
This is
That's
not
a
approved
motion.
by a house.
Oh, wait.
If you
Before we
wanna
get-
talk about it, we should just pull it, and talk about it separately, prove it
Okay.
separately, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so pull the waiver.
Because we were just supposed to approve it and not talk about it
Yeah.
for the consent agenda.
Yeah.
So just define what we're gonna pull. then
Right.
we pull it, then we approve the consent agenda, and then we talk about those things.
Oh, I do have a question. The student handbook, has that already been printed?
It's been printed and it's posted online.
Okay.
All right, so we'll pull back the,
You read it and memorized it, I'm sure.
right, so, okay, so we'll pull back the approval of the tuition waiver for right now, to have a discussion on that. And then we do the consent agenda, right? What's left?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, so then I just need a motion to,
so I move that we approve
I just want to say one thing. Sorry. The parent student handbook, it was 2 years ago, I think, that I saw all the phone numbers were wrong, all this information was wrong, it was already printed, and we asked to have it beforehand, before it's printed. Can that happen next time? Because there was a few typos that I saw in it that I was marking and checking, and so there's,
This time?
yeah, on the first page, I think. So it's like, if we're gonna approve it, I'd really like to look over it and then say, okay, yep, we're good. Could that happen next time that we get it before it's printed?
We can, that was an oversight. However, the good news is that it's online.
Good.
So if you can send any of those edits to Ben,
Okay.
he can correct
Fix
it
it.
online immediately.
Okay.
And the other good news is, I think our schools have really gone to an online version.
Yeah.
They ordered very minimal numbers.
So there wasn't even a whole lot printed in the first
Right.
place.
So
Well, it looks a lot better than it did. It looks good. Yeah, it looks really good. Besides those people.
that was Ben's first student handbook.
That was
so he
good.
did a great job.
Yeah, that was good.
And yeah, so please bring that.
Okay.
Bring
Yeah, I
those to
think
our
it was a
attention.
capital
That'd
this,
be
a
helpful.
period. That was it.
Yeah.
Nothing major at all.
Good.
So it's in the motion. It'll tell you why
Just make a
Right.
note.
Okay, are there any other just generic questions about items that are on the consent agenda? Okay, now can I have a motion for the remainder of the consent agenda?
I'm gonna make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the following. Approve warrants, approve meeting minutes of 7/11/14, affirm the parent-student handbook, the recording secretary agreement, the approved child nutrition truck bid, and the copier printer lease agreement.
Do I have a second? I have Dave for a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? None. Motion passes 5-0.
We didn't need the professional appointments at all.
Right.
So all we have to talk about now is
So now, let's, the questions about the tuition waiver?
Yeah, what they have here to show they're moving into the village, it's not an agreement to buy anything. It's just an agreement to, they're not gonna sell that property for 30 days while they negotiate a price.
I'd like to see a purchase and sale. I mean, this person could be coming in, saying, you know, well, yeah, we're thinking about moving here, and decide not to, and we have this child in our school system. This is not an agreement to buy a house. This is an agreement to hold a property for 30 days while they negotiate a price.
It's the reservation agreement.
Yeah, the reservation, and that's what she's using, that's what's being used as proof that they're moving to the village, and that's not an agreement.
You're correct.
It's not even close. It's,
That's true.
yeah, I have no reason to doubt that they're not intending to, but, you know.
Well, it's saying the deposit will be returned and the sellers will be free again to offer the lot to someone else if it doesn't work out.
Right, so,
So they might not make an agreement.
right.
That's true.
So, now you have a child in your school system, and are you stuck with them, or are they send them back to
How
Colquitt?
many days can the superintendent approve?
30.
30. So you can approve a 30-day tuition waiver,
That's correct.
and if we go above 30 days, the board.
So if you'd like, just to, you know,
Right.
Make it a
safeguard
condition.
it, I could approve, if the board wishes, 30 days,
Right,
and then
Contingent.
right.
yeah.
As long as a purchase and sale, or
And
something
then-
with a little more concrete
And
evidence that
then
they're moving
request
to the
further
village.
evidence before the end of the 30-day approval. What that would mean.
It's a bill.
It could be a
That's why.
It could be a.
Oh, right, right,
It's a new, it doesn't exist.
right, but still, you decide, they have
It's
not
a new
agreed,
build.
they have not agreed to buy that house yet, though.
Yeah, but it's like to build a house.
I know, but we built our house
Right,
with
but
the
we
same
built the
thing.
house
Right,
and
right,
we, yeah.
You
we
then put down a
money
bigger
and you
deposit
knew what
saying,
you were
I've
paying.
agreed to pay this price when you're done.
Right.
Right.
This isn't that.
Right.
This
Got
is
it.
just saying,
Yep.
okay, you know, it's mine to negotiate with you for 30 days.
Deposit to negotiate.
So after
Oh, yeah,
the
great.
8th of September,
Yeah.
Right. They decide for the
that-
new, right.
Would they enter into another agreement, or is that, I mean,
Well,
It would
the
still
after 30 days,
require-
the builder can offer it to somebody else.
right, but if they
If they
don't,
haven't agreed yet.
is that then committed,
No, they haven't
it's
done
still, the
anything.
commit is still not, has
Yeah,
still
so
not
it's-
occurred?
It's still in
Could
the
we
actual-
see if, say
Okay.
you've got a week to get back to us and try to do this, or no?
I mean, you
I don't want to put
care,
you,
right?
that's, the builder finds that out, they're like, okay, I know you got a week to decide, I'm gonna use it to my advantage, I don't want to do that to them, nah.
So,
You know, I'm sure their child's best interest is at heart, so they're not gonna do this if they're not truly,
Right.
right, but on the other hand, I wanna make sure that
Right, and
they're
if
covered.
they are not residents, then.
After the 30 days that you give them,
I mean, we can make a motion with a contingency in it. I mean, Judy is allowed, the superintendent's allowed to waive 30 days.
right, so I say we just table this for
I think
30
it's
days,
easier, I think it's cleaner to do it that way.
and let Judy just give her the
Table it?
30 days,
Yeah.
and,
Because if we make a motion and we don't have it quite right, then it may somehow obligate us within, because we didn't get the language just right.
It came to you because it exceeded my authority.
Right.
right.
Um,
So it has to come to us, so
So
you
it
had to
has to
bring it.
come, yeah, so I had to bring it to you. I can approve and say the board is requesting more verification of the house
Right, that you're
confirmation.
moving here, right?
Yeah.
A signed purchase and sale
I mean,
or
she
something.
says in her letter that they're expecting a closing date of October 15th, and that their house in Colchester, they've already got a deposit, it's already under deposit.
Right, so everything says they're moving, now hopefully they're
Yeah.
moving here, right?
Right. Right,
And, you know,
into that
yeah.
place. I did check in with our principals, both
This is-
principals.
Sorry, it's tuition because they don't actually live in Essex yet, so they have to pay tuition.
this is also an either
Is
or
that,
neighborhood.
that's just what we call it, then just the
Right,
mechanic.
if we didn't give them a waiver, right, they'd have to.
But they're in an either or neighborhood, so do we know where they'd be going to school?
Yeah, both principals I've connected with, and,
Okay.
yeah, that's, both principals.
Are okay with-
Are okay with the
okay.
recommendation of the board to
Oh,
accept.
that's the question.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
Summit and
Yeah.
Hiawatha,
Yeah, yeah, that one's-
yeah.
I didn't-
Yeah,
I
I just
didn't
didn't
know
have a
either
chance
way.
to tell you
Okay.
that yet.
That it's an either or neighborhood, I didn't.
I think that.
They could go to Summit or Hiawatha.
Right, because they're in either
Oh,
or.
that kind.
And,
First grade.
I think it's, I'm just trying to think about what they would have in 30 days that would ensure you that they're moving.
Final negotiation,
Yeah,
with the
but
purchase and sales.
They'll have something more than this.
Purchase
because
agreement.
This says they'll have something within 30 days.
That's what I'm saying, September 8th is the next deadline
Right.
of their documents,
Yeah,
right?
so they'll have something in the next week,
And school
Pending.
doesn't.
3 weeks.
Pending the receipt of a purchase agreement.
Purchase and
Right.
sales, yeah.
We can do a telephone board meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, Ben can email us what we need, and we can do
Okay.
a telephone.
Got
Do
it.
it at ADL on 9/11.
Yeah, we could. All of us are gonna be there.
well,
board meeting.
there's gonna be 3 of us there just as parents.
Oh, we could wait till the
You
end
said
of
you
the.
wanted to warn it anyway, just put it on the agenda.
That's right,
Have an
okay.
actual meeting at the end of
All
the
right,
meeting.
Well, it
so,
would be warned as engagement. I mean, what's the board's work? Because we'd have to have an agenda. I didn't mean to cut into your.
You I think
Trying to
you
get us
just
a
put
few-
one line, I think her point is just saying, to avoid, in case we all end up having a quick conversation, technically it's a board meeting, and so we just have a thing that says,
public engagement,
public
Got it.
engagement, because
Perfect.
then we can have a conversation about our public engagement,
Good.
right,
you know.
Okay, so what I heard
makes
was,
sense.
are you authorizing me to?
yes,
Not
Okay.
for 30 days,
Okay, approve this for 30 days.
yep.
Tell you why.
All right,
No, I'm,
so the next item, we bumped up the future agenda items. I've got for Aaron to report out on the preschool work. Dave's kind of asked the question of, is there, what's kind of the threshold for a time commitment towards, all of these as we continue to expand the number of schools or of preschools, you know, what's the capacity for what we have already on staff?
Well, which ties into the CCR report,
Yeah,
because that report is
childcare
finding out why all of our slots aren't filled up. So for us to keep going,
Right.
we need to figure out, do we want to keep going? Because if we're not filling what we need, then, so we spent money on that report. I want to see something about the CCR report and tie it all together.
Right.
So you want that report from Erin?
Or where she is in the process and what's happened, the latest, just the, yeah.
Just an update.
Yeah.
And then tie in the growing kids from Essex.
Yep.
Yes.
I don't know if this is an agenda item, but it's something I want to keep in the forefront. School calendar. You know, I want to avoid next June being asked to rubber stamp it. So who's ever going to be on the
right.
committee that's going to put the school calendar together, that they give it to us March or sometime that if we
In
give
time
them
to
feedback,
actually
they have time to then turn around
change
and
it.
make changes. So whatever that they
Say
think it is.
something, yeah.
If it needs to be January, but
Right,
I
okay.
prefer not to get a calendar in June.
I did, just on school calendar, I did hear back from Kim. I remember this was actually now a while ago. I asked Kim Gleason at Essex Town. So they just do it in their consent agenda.
Yep.
They don't talk about it.
Because it's not the decision of a local board.
Yeah, because it involves so many, and I think I kind of got that finally at the
Right.
end, that
It's-
it involves so much
Right.
planning between all of our schools and
It's a
even
region.
regional
It's a regional
planning,
calendar.
that like our board actually like.
But
you
I
know,
had questions about the days that they decided, like maybe
Right.
the six half days.
His question was not about the regional
Right,
calendar, but
right,
how
it's
it's
true.
adjusted
And that's
at the local
and that's what I want to. If you're making changes,
Yeah,
why? You know,
yeah.
It's yeah.
you know.
Speaking of calendars, we didn't talk about the budget one, did we? And didn't you want to change some dates to get?
Oh,
Was
I
it
was
done?
just gonna give you an update on that. That was a good question you
Yeah,
had
because that was
asked.
actually, and I think we might have skipped that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where is that?
I don't know where it is in the, I think it wasn't on the agenda.
It wasn't on the agenda with time.
I
It was
wanted
just
you to
in the-
know that,
Oh, did I skip right over that?
It's in the
No.
it was in
ordinance.
the ordinance, not on the
Okay.
agenda.
Yeah.
That,
must have not
we already
worked it out.
compensated for your December 1st deadline by,
Just fi-
calling a meeting on 10/29 from 3:30 to 5:30 and 11/18 from 3:30 to 5:30 with all four EJ principals, Deb Robbins, Grant Geisler, myself. So any new programs, staffing, we've built in time to have that conversation to
great.
ensure that your deadline will be honored.
Right.
When you have the calendar finally figured out, can you then mail me or call me and I'd like a colored copy? It's just easier for me to follow the dates of when it's black and it's,
Right. It'll be in color at the SU board level,
Oh,
which is where
great.
you'll adopt.
fantastic.
Yay.
Oh, your printout is not in color.
Color. I have black
You
and
just print both
Ben
in black
printed it
and
off
white.
black and white.
Yeah.
My printer's black and white.
Yeah.
You want that one in color.
I want that one in color because it's so
Usually are, right?
detailed.
Well, they are online, but when you print them off, it's,
Oh, and Ben puts mine are color. He's gonna have Ben do it.
Are you giving Jen preferential treatment?
I
with our
think so.
colored
I think
copies?
now
That's it, that's it. I got black and white.
wait.
Go there. Don't.
Okay, all right, so I've got a couple items, you know, for Aaron, school calendar.
So I get a couple things.
Uh-huh,
This may not need a future agenda item. That was one of the questions I had, which was some background on world language.
oh,
So if everybody thinks it's okay to have a future agenda item, we can have it. Maybe if we need to have a conversation about it, what's our plan going forward, then that would make sense.
So the conversation is gonna happen on, those dates that I just shared with you, 10/29, and, you know, so
You-
it'll come through staffing.
You guys will have that conversation
Right,
there,
and so a
and then,
recommendation will come to you before December if
okay,
there's
so
gonna be
it's a
any.
few meetings away,
Yeah.
future agenda item.
Yep.
Great.
So then, looking at our last last notes, we decided to discuss these in order, and the ones we didn't get to, or like the principal reports to the board, so we can look at this to see what we didn't
Right.
get to.
So we have the calendar, we have principal reports to the board.
Yep.
Annual meeting date option.
Right.
What was
I don't know
that?
what the consent agenda was. I'm not sure what that's in there.
Future agenda items.
I guess we'll be talking more about AI then, right after we talk to Shelley.
Yeah, AI will be part of your maybe agenda.
Actually, that's right, we might be,
if-
Yes.
if
being
you're gonna
briefed
move
on it.
forward if it's in September.
Well, that will be the
The meeting, probably.
Well,
Right, but we're talking about
should-
those future agenda items right now for October, because there's not, that's all the meeting will be in September.
correct.
Because we've got
Yeah.
four,
AI.
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
okay,
So this is now in October
right,
This is
right.
October because,
for the preschool.
Because we've got the open houses,
Right.
right, because open
September.
houses and then AI meeting,
Okay.
you'll be in,
which is 3
will be
hours.
September.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so for Ben's sake as clerk, I've got down that we're gonna have a report from Aaron, and we're talking about capacity of the preschool program.
Yep.
And we're gonna have, we won't have the conversation on local school calendar yet.
I think I understand
Well, I just
David's,
make sure
I think I understand his
Right.
question better. So the regional superintendents are the ones responsible to bring forward a calendar with 175 days. But what happens and what I think David is talking about is this year we put in some early release days
Right.
and made some modifications. And what you were saying was that, what's the rationale or the need, or helping me understand why it would be
Right.
modified from
Right,
the.
it came down to, we're rubber stamping something, I was like, well, I understand sometimes it seems to be unnecessary, but, I would like to avoid that if possible.
Mhm.
No, I remember.
It's like the handbook, right?
Absolutely, you're right, you need to get it
Right.
beforehand, so you
So
can send it
my
back.
question is that an October future agenda meeting?
Yes.
Talking the local school calendar?
Yeah.
It is, okay. And then I've written
Do
down
we wanna
budget
give direction, or
calendar.
we wanna just
Yeah,
listen?
because I think if you're gonna give directions, like, an example would be, try to schedule no more, the board is encouraging our schools to schedule no more than 4 early release days, or
Right.
whatever it is
I mean,
that
and we decide we're
you're
not giving
not
direction.
on Thursday.
But I
Right.
I just want to have some.
Right,
be able to
somewhere
get
Just
the
something to
other
see, and
Yeah,
based
or
on
some consistent.
experience or whatever,
Or at
to
least some time
give some
to hear.
suggestions.
And/or you could
Here's
just
the
ask your
explanation.
principals in their, talking about principal reports, you can ask your principals to provide information about those early release days in their principal report, so you get that information prior to seeing how
Right.
it's
Right, and so we
modified. understand,
understand, because remember it came off the heels of, okay, there's no school Thursday, but you're coming back on Friday. And I think that was because of the ADL open houses. And we heard a lot from parents about that. And then we saw the calendar right after and we thought, wait a second, we better work on this.
Right.
So,
right.
I think we should schedule it, Marla, to answer your questions, because the
Okay,
sooner we're
so-
clear on.
A report from Aaron on capacity of preschool.
Mhm.
We've got the local school calendar.
Mhm.
Is it budget guidance time in October? No? And then Jen listed off a bunch, but I think your voice dropped, so I didn't hear what you wanted, Jen.
oh, I was just saying, it says in our notes what we didn't get to at our last meeting, so that we had talked about, the did you say principal reports to the board? Did you say that?
Principal,
Yeah.
I didn't, but we
Okay.
need to discuss that, principal reports.
Right.
Okay.
Review the annual meeting date options, which I'm not.
Now, was that annual meeting date the question around
Yeah, I don't know
meeting
what that
on
is.
Saturday, and that the village trustees were interested in combining? There's been information in the newspaper about it as
Oh.
well.
I thought there was
about-
already, we weren't doing that, I think, who said, we had some information about it saying it's not a good idea, I thought it wouldn't work because of,
I don't know.
Something.
I think we needed the
George.
conversation because I believe we have a charter. The Prudential Committee has a charter, and if those dates are gonna change, they gotta be talked about, and then the charter change goes to legislature Montpelier. So you're talking about a 2 to 3 year change, so if the trustees wanna talk about this, we need to start the
Right.
conversation
Right,
now.
so George Tyler asked if this board is interested in any changes to the annual meeting date as far as increasing engagement, public engagement, because I think the feedback that they've been receiving is it's so disjointed, like you have to come out for the village vote and then you have to come out, you know, for all these different votes, and they were just exploring those options. There was no meeting set. I could connect with George and see if we would be, if they're interested in hosting our board at one of their meetings, if that discussion is coming up, as you have had
Mhm.
in the
Yeah, you
past.
could just show up for a discussion. about it.
Yeah,
Or, I mean, all of us can show up.
yeah.
We can add it to the next meeting, and if we get to it.
I think it's a discussion we should have among our board before
First,
we
I agree with
Okay.
you.
talk to the trustees, because I think they're
That's
talking
a good
about
idea.
Union High School
I have
board
thoughts about it,
meeting
so, yeah.
and Town of Essex. I mean, you've got a lot of board meetings.
A lot of things trying to be combined into.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'd like to discuss it as a
Yeah.
board first, and then we could meet with the trustees.
So do you want to have that in your October meeting?
Yeah,
Okay.
So what else? Jen had some.
I think
others.
that's it said consent agenda with
something?
that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could come up with some more
Beautification.
after
Oh.
we talk about our evaluation, but what is the thing that we should be doing in October? Every October. That's what I want to do. There.
What is it?
If there's an annual work plan, that's what I don't know, that's what I'm saying. What is we should already know. There should be like basically like some things that are like a set agenda. So
I see what you're saying.
I brought
Yeah.
up before about getting kind of a report out on the principal evaluations. And, you know, I think Judy had said, they'll be complete now. So they'll be completed now at the end of the summer. So then in October, then that would make sense that we get a report on the principal evaluations. You know, how did it go, how did they do, whatever it is, whatever that kind of looks like, and then we could improve that over time. But then, because that's the timing, that's the example of what I mean. And that way, every October, that's what we get, because then that sets
So
our.
every October you have enrollment, October 1st enrollment data. Every October, I mean, we have a running, we can provide that. That's, you know, you have your annual flow of information. October 1st
Right.
is
Right.
when you receive that
Get some of this
information. You
information.
get your financial, how you ended your fiscal year, financial report. There's a whole series of things that whenever we create the orgs, we always go back to the October, you know, whatever agenda we're in, and review those cyclical
Okay, yeah,
topics.
some of that
so-
kind of comes in anyway
Absolutely,
as information.
absolutely.
Right, but then when it comes to
The
an agenda
future,
item that we're gonna talk about, it's gonna be
Right.
the more meatier thing, and that needs discussion, as opposed to, it doesn't need too much discussion, other things.
Right.
Right.
So that's just the one, I wanna make sure we're having the thing we wanna have that's towards our work.
so you want to charge our chair and Judy to make sure that they have on the October meeting anything we need to discuss that is coming up with the annual work plan.
Yeah,
Yep.
Are we gonna have the information from Brad and Grant at that point about what we asked of them? Did we give them a timeline?
No, in budget.
Just, so
during
like
budget.
November, December, January, okay.
We're
Yeah.
talking
Later.
budget.
More
Budget.
January, February
Yeah.
yeah, when they come.
timeframe.
I have something I wanted to discuss on a future agenda. This little, the data that Vince Ganillo gave us. My concern was when he talked about how much work they had and the, how do I word it? the issue of all the staffing and everything at the rec
Schools.
department seems to have put quite a bit of load on them. So I would like to have a discussion. I don't know if Vince needs to be there, but I'd like to know if we should be considering at the rec department that we have someone who's taking care of the rec department in IT. Or what portion does the rec department pay for IT?
So,
In the school, right?
so I think what Vince was referring to was camp, what was it called, Fleming? Reach?
Camp Reach.
Camp Reach.
Okay, great.
There were some additional camps that went into the schools that not only challenged IT, but maintenance as well, because there was more use. And so I think communication, better communication around where programs are going to take place in advance and that planning will help. Some of our directors got caught a little off guard with things, both with IT schedules, cleaning schedules, and then EJRP programs kind of had some collisions this summer.
I would still like to see it as a future agenda
Okay.
item that, something from Vince, just do we need,
I don't agree.
you don't agree?
That's their job to run the school. I don't want to get involved in that. I mean, I could maybe see that if rec would, if what we're talking about was an issue between rec and the schools and all the directors, if there's maybe we could ask for a report from the rec department on the impact of their programs in the schools. But like, what more do we really need as the board? I mean, that they're going to learn. They're going to take the learning from this year, apply it to next year. I mean, I trust the staff to do that. You know, I mean, he just notified us, but we don't need to get more deep. What are we going to do? There's no. What decision are we going to make from this information that really is in the board's work?
Right.
Because before budget time, I would like to know if we need to be considering
They'll put it in their budget.
how the rec department and the assessment, because they pay a piece of the assessment. You know, the rec department pays a part of the assessment. We assess them. I
I
just,
think that would be something though that Grant would factor in.
Yeah, it'd be factored into the budgets and let them explain it during the
Yeah.
budgets. We had to raise this due
Yeah.
to the additional use
Right.
by rec of the schools.
Right.
You know,
so that would be
right?
brought to us by December 1st, our December
If it's
meeting.
new, if there's any new
If there's a real
changes to
change.
it.
Okay.
Okay.
That
So
was
leave it
only
there.
new, anything new.
Right, the December 1st was the new
Right.
programs thing, yeah, otherwise it's just embedded in the budget.
In the budget.
Right.
Yeah, it seems like it can be covered, I mean, I don't,
Yeah, I think that, you know, there's plans around that now.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? Seems like we covered
A lot.
We did,
yeah,
quite a few
we're
things to,
only a
got
little-
plenty of.
for in planning session
good meeting.
to get put on our agenda items. All right, so then, I just need a motion to move into executive session for discussion of board survey results.
I move that we move into executive session at 9:18 to discuss the board evaluation.
Second?
I'll second.
Dave seconds. All those in favor? Aye.
Right.
We're in executive session.